All right, welcome, Dana. Welcome to my
My
new
guest
haircut.
today is Dr. David Spade, who's from. No, we have a guest we've had before,
Yeah.
Dr. Greer, a ufologist, a trauma doctor who found out some secret stuff about the government and has devoted the last 25, 30 years to exposing it. So take it from there, David.
Well, listen, we like Dr. Greer. We had him on before. We got a lot of comments on YouTube. I think people think he's very interesting. It's a riveting conversation. Like, I don't even know if I was ready for it because I'm telling you, we haven't been shut up like that in a while. And because we want to let him talk, and he's got a lot to say. And it started by saying, hey, all these things over New Jersey. And then there's also drones and orbs seen everywhere and all over the country and world. And everyone's panicking. And do you know anything that we don't? Which, of course, he does.
That was our main thing. We wanted to get information on these unidentified flying objects, i.e. drones, where they're from, how they move, how they disappear, what they're related to, why, what are they up to? Why are they here? And he does, he goes on some tangents, but he does basically answer those questions.
They're mind-boggling.
Mind-boggling stuff.
I have to say, we didn't do many jokes. I wanted to say for $2 trillion, you can get some pretty decent orbs, which you'll get that joke once you're watching. But we let him talk, and he talks about where he thinks they're from, why they're there. We talk about extraterrestrials, obviously the most interesting part. And should we be scared? Should we not be scared? What's the future? And God, did he have some answers?
Just basically, there's, without giving it away, there's some information that may be coming down from a whistleblower very soon. And there is potentially rogue organizations that are doing these things. So anyway, it's a lot to unpack. David Spade went 17 minutes without talking, just so you know.
That's never happened. Even in my sleep, it hasn't.
I know. And I went 1802. I timed both. It's not a competition, but he goes on a lot of tangents, and you really want to listen to, it's a very comprehensive talk. So take it for what it is. There's a lot of people out there saying a lot of things, but here's someone who's very interesting.
We'll get back to our jokey jokes next week, but I think we just got to run this because every time we had something to ask him, he would just start covering a new interesting thing. And I'm like, oh my God. We were just dumbfounded. So see if you are. You might not buy into this whole thing. You might, but he has so much backing and so much on his website that you go, something's going on here. Something's happening.
No one knows what's really going on, but he's putting out some information that's kind of interesting, and I found it mesmerizing. So all
right. So here, listen up and tell us what you think at the comments. Okay, so you got to follow. Tag BetMGM across all your socials. You know this.
Are you serious?
BetMGM.
Yeah, wow.
Wow. Wow.
That's Christopher Walken reacting to that news. Also, the tagline, the sports book born in Vegas. Wow. Vegas born sports book.
They are the sports book born in Vegas.
Sports book born in Vegas.
Yes, Walken, you got it.
I'm talking Walken.
The second chance on a first touchdown score. Let me explain.
All season. Can it finish one time? All season long. BetMGM's offering you a second chance on your first touchdown bet. When a customer places a wager on the first touchdown score bet, and he does not score first, can it finish one time, but scores second, we will return 100% of their stake back in cash. BetMGM and GameSense remind you to play responsibly. BetMGM and GameSense remind you to gamble responsibly. See BetMGM.com for terms. 21 plus only. This U.S. promotional offer not available in Ontario.
Gambling problem, Dana? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Available in the U.S. For New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. For Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP. For Massachusetts, 1-800-327-5050. For Iowa, Bets off. For Puerto Rico, 1-800-981-0023. Subject to eligibility requirements in partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. There's our buddy.
Thanks for coming on, Dr. Greer.
Oh, sure.
I know this is the big
Stevie
time for you.
This is go time.
It's gotten very bad.
Super Bowl.
We're intensely curious, but I don't even know where to start. Do you want to make an opening statement?
Yeah.
We're recording this.
Yeah, you can start because we know what we're going to ask you.
I'm talking to Ted Cruz, right? Ted, he's on now. Okay, I'll ask him that.
Oh, good. Fire away, Ted.
No. Anyway, so is your head spinning, or you're looking at this from a completely different point of view than almost all of us in America? So what are your just basic thoughts about this phenomenon of things in the sky?
There you go.
Well, I mean, as you know, I've predicted this sort of thing would happen for 30 years. There's a covert rogue military component that is behind all these drone sightings. Some of them are drones, some of them are a little more advanced.
Drone sightings.
And most of them are part of a rogue military operation to basically create a psychological warfare effect in the media and in the public in advance of something that nobody knows is going to happen, but I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. So there's a group of
the psychological part is working, by the way. We're all scared.
We're all terrified.
Yeah, you should be. So this is very serious. So there's a group of guys who I've known for about 18, 19 months who are senior intel and aerospace operatives out of some desert locations. I'm not going to mention where they are. I've been to them, where most of the R&D testing and operations dealing with so-called UFOs, UAPs occur. Now, this guy, the main guy, has 6 other black sites, as they're called, operational sites that are very secretive, and are these particular ones are ones that are rogue and been running illegally for a long time. He is coming forward in the next 30 days or so, maybe less, with the evidence and unmasking himself and some of his operators, special forces guys, about what's going on at these sites, and with evidence. In other words, he's been operational when they have targeted and downed extraterrestrial vehicles. He's been present when they've tested man-made UFOs, which are mostly what people see, that are essentially anti-gravity craft. He's been present when there are a number of illegal operations that have occurred, including the incidental hitting and downing of civilian private planes that go up over this test area after a temporary flight restriction has gone up. So there are innocent people who have been murdered, and there's no evidence that they were hit. So these are serious guys. The main guy I've been dealing with, I know some of the others, has been in those operations for 29 years, since the 1995 period, but he was very young. At that time, he didn't know he was involved in an illegal and unsanctioned operation. He does now, and they're fed up with it, and they want to come forward. Now, in advance of that, because what he's going to bring forward would be, I understand, if he can get this done in the next 3 weeks or so, would be the videos, the evidence, the proof, not only of the NHI, as they call them, non-human intelligence craft and bodies and beings, but of the man-made ones, and also of some operations that involve the transport of humans in experimental operations from distressed areas around the world. Now, as you know, we have a whistleblower who was a Marine who came across this in 2009 in Indonesia after there was an earthquake and tsunami. And he came across an operation of what looked like an octagonal disc that was about 300 feet across, size football field, that was levitating above a clearing in the jungle. And his platoon came across this. They were almost killed by these operators who were American, but were not did not look like they were any part of any armed forces insignia or uniform.
Yeah.
And they had crated up and were transporting humans who were barely alive. And they said, look, you can come with us. And then those were moved over into, we found later, experimental programs at some of these STIFs, these subterranean facilities, underground bases. So all of this is a very complex story. They have the goods, they have the proof. This will be the biggest disclosure related to these sort of issues in history. Well, I say it's going to be the biggest disclosure in human history, period. So in advance of that, these fascists and criminals that have, at the core of these covert operations, have been launching these sort of decoy drone events, and also orbs. People are seeing these orb-like things.
Yeah.
Those aren't extraterrestrial either. 100% of it's man-made. And we can unpack that. Then this is a huge problem, because this is going to happen during this transition before the next president comes in. I've been, doing kind of shuttle briefings from London to the incoming presidential team and the existing leaders at the Senate Intelligence and Armed Services Committee. So I've just been going flat out, for the last few months, because we've known about this for some time. Now, this last flurry of all this activity, there are various reasons I think are being given inside out of Peterson Air Force Base and a couple other operational facilities that these drones are part of a black budget project because they're sniffing out potentially a dangerous weapon that's gone loose or something like that. Mm-hmm. Now, I've heard that from several very good, highly placed folks in the intelligence community. That could also be a misdirect to create panic and concern. But I do know that this is very serious. It's not just people misidentifying small aircraft. And these actually are part of a covert rogue military and corporate organization that I've been blowing the whistle on for 30 years. In fact, the way I knew this operation was illegal was when I briefed President Clinton's first CIA director on the matter, and on December 13th, 1993. So it's 31 years ago this past week. And he and the president had no access or knowledge of these programs. And remember, my uncle and other people I knew worked Northrop Grumman and these Lockheed Skunk Works programs. And I had all the evidence already in 1993. And so at that point, we did conclude that the operations dealing with this subject, even though it's the butt of a lot of jokes and whatnot, little green men, haha, that is actually being run very secretively, but also illegally, without the oversight of the Congress or the president. Now, there are people embedded in the White House, National Security Council, Congress, who are operatives who actually are there to gaslight and deceive the senior members of the Senate and the House. But for the most part, it has gone unsupervised since about 1957 to 1959, when this organization decided to tell Eisenhower and his folks to go jump in the lake. And they took all these projects deep black, meaning illegal. And there is a legal budget of the United States. It's the black budget that only the president and a handful of senators and congressmen see. But this is beyond that. That's beyond their oversight and supervision. So you can imagine how dangerous that is. And we're not talking a trivial amount of money. I'd say since the late 50s, 60s, somewhere on the order of $8 to $10 trillion have gone into those kind of projects from various agencies and departments. So, we're talking, what's that, a third of our national debt. But the other problem, and this is the biggest one, I just might as well drop this bomb at the beginning.
Absolutely.
I haven't started yet.
No pun
bro.
intended.
Oh yeah, bro, I ain't started yet. So what has happened is that if you can visualize 75 years of some of the most brilliant scientists and engineers on planet Earth, who sometimes identify in high school, college, postgrad, are pulled into these covert programs to study the extraterrestrial material, meaning the craft, the technologies, and what have you. By late 1950s, there were operational man-made UFOs that were anti-grav type devices. And we have schematics of them. We have images of them. And people often will see those and think it's alien. I go, oh, no, it didn't. My uncle's company, Northrop Grumman, built that one, the triangle, right? Or Raytheon or Lockheed Skunk Works. So now we get this. Now go forward 75 years and that kind of money and brain power studying this kind of material. And you have some technologies that are in the hands of these rogue and criminal elements, there's no other way to word it, that are way beyond the power of, say, a thermonuclear weapon or something like that, because you're dealing with being able to move across space-time at multiples of the speed of light, all kinds of advanced tech. And those can be used in what are called deceptive indications and warnings or false flag operations. So some of what you see with this sort of phenomenon, occasionally it will be actually what they call NHI or non-human intelligence. I'd say 80-90% of the time it's ours, but very advanced. Now, some of it's clunky, like our old-fashioned drones with rotors, and some of them are loud that have been reported because they have regular conventional engines. There's some of the objects that have been put up over some of these sites in their military installations are not so prosaic, and they're advanced. And this is why some members of Congress and even people in the Pentagon think, oh, well, maybe it's an adversary or maybe it's from outer space. It isn't. It's all from this rogue group because they have technologies that at this point in 2024 would almost be indistinguishable from an actual extraterrestrial vehicle. Not quite, but very advanced. And I have a number of whistleblowers who come forward describing those, particularly the ones I think out of Raytheon and a few other corporate operations. So remember, Ben Rich told a member of my team before he died, and Ben Rich was the head of the famous Lockheed Skunk Works. He said, anything you can imagine, we've already done at the Lockheed Skunk Works. He said, not at Area 51. The real action is the Lockheed Skunk Works. It's in underground facilities. And he says, anything you've seen portrayed on Star Trek, we can do it, and we've done it. So now this.
Well, wait a minute. You can beam people? Because that seems like the coolest thing. Beam me down to a planet.
They do. Yeah, they do have technologies for what's called teleportation. Of course, in physics, if you look it up, it's happened with particles through the what's called entanglement, quantum entanglement, where every point in space and time is interconnected. But with the kind of technology they've been able to study that are NHI or extraterrestrial, those are so advanced, you're obviously not going to be going from one star system to another at anything that's the speed of light. You're going to have to go through an entangled aspect of the universe through gravity. It kind of like that. It's more the creation of through gravitational waves, being able to basically bend space and time. So if you look at point A to B through 1,000 light years of space, and look at it as a straight line, like on a piece of paper, fold the piece of paper. They're like this.
That.
All right.
Make them touch.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the sort of technology. Unfortunately, some of the worst people on the planet have it. It is not known by, I don't know of a president since I've been working on this who's been read in or briefed on it properly. So that's been 34 years.
Are the worst people other leaders or just bad people we have in America, or just
the covert
terrorists?
rogue military operation, right?
It's covert rogue military corporate. I'd say the center of power on this is corporate, but there are people who are embedded in the Pentagon and even in the House and Senate, and I know who a couple of them are. I'm not going to go into it too much right here, but they're part of that organization, and they're mainly there to just, none of this is true, and to just sort of gaslight their colleagues, because like the Senate is a club of 100 guys and women, and it's not hard to deceive them. And if it's coming from one of your senior colleagues, you're going to think it's real. Like if a doctor tells another doctor, or a lawyer another lawyer, there's a built-in affinity group, sort of credibility. So those have been embedded. And there are people embedded within the Pentagon, although to get people up to speed on how kind of, as screwed up you think Washington is, it's more screwed up. So, I mean,
Now,
as bad as you think it is.
Could I just go back to the beginning for a second, and we can walk our way through? Because the first thing you said, well, just kind of blew my mind. A rogue organization, military in nature, probably with corporate entities, is putting these things in the air to create distrust, to create a little bit of panic for some reason we don't know. And you personally talked to you'd call him a whistleblower, right? Who within 30 days, if this is a movie, because it feels like a science fiction movie, obviously it's real.
Yeah,
it does.
But that would seem like that gentleman's life he should be very careful. And also, within 30 days, this will be in a congressional hearing, or just go to the media?
God, no. Let me tell you how this is going to happen.
Will see videos or people?
Yes.
Yeah.
He's releasing. Now, remember, he's been operational about 15 months ago. He took me in his helicopter over these classified sites and exactly over the opening of one of the underground bases. I have that footage. We have it. I provided it to the Senate Intelligence Committee pretty quickly. About 3 weeks later, I was almost killed in a terrible accident and have since recovered. But no, this is deadly serious stuff. And and of course, he and his whole family are at tremendous risk. They know the risk, but these are big boys. I mean, they're very way up there with special operations. They've all been either Green Beret, Delta Force, those guys. And so, these are not just your corporate shills, right? Dancing around in penny loafers and three-piece suits. So, so they know what they're doing. I've been asked to sort of put out to the public and to the incoming administration the details of this. So there's a heads up, as well as the existing administration and Congress. Yeah, because right now everyone's going to be caught unawares. And this spate of drone and other strange sightings, it really is to induce fear, because one of the plans, if you remember, I don't know if you guys remember Werner von Braun. He invented the rocket for Adolf Hitler. Mm-hmm. Okay. So his spokeswoman for the last 5 years of his life, he was dying of liver cancer, is on our team, Carol Rosen. And she was the first woman executive in the aerospace industry. And back in 1974, Werner von Braun said to her, what we're going to do, we're going to hoax an alien threat to consolidate sort of a totalitarian power around the world, because it'll be so frightening to people. They will give up their freedoms, and they will, et cetera, and so on. Sort of like the overreaction, but on a much larger scale, what happened with COVID and 9/11 and the Gulf of Tonkin and the Vietnam War. So that kind of operation has been going on for a very long time. This is the granddaddy of them. This is the one that people have feared.
Is this Blue Beam, or is that something else?
I do not have that code name. People talk about Project Blue Beam. I think that's just a name attached to this. The people I work with who actually read into and been involved in that plan, and I have debriefed people involved with that plan very specifically, beginning in the mid-90s. None of them have used that term. So I'm very careful. I'm a scientist. I'm a trauma doctor. I try to avoid, the rubbish that's on the internet, because most of it is rubbish. But at the same time, if there's a name attached to it like that, that's a code word, what they're called code word projects. I don't know it, but I know what the project is. And I know people who have been operational to fulfill it. Back in 1997, we had a man who came to Washington to provide some information at meetings I was having. And he had been on an interagency committee, and they could basically hit a button and start hoaxing the kind of nonsense you're seeing now to make people think there's some alien attack happening. So I think this is where we're very vulnerable. Neither the media nor the public nor our leaders are properly briefed and have enough of the information. What this man and his team defecting with will put that to rest if they're successful. And I think they will be, frankly. I heard from him yesterday. after I received a death threat and was told I was going to be arrested as a Russian spy. Can you believe it? Me and Tulsi Gabbard are big Russian spies. Anyway, the whole thing is just so bizarre. But this is the kind of games that are played. It's to be expected. It's stressful, obviously, but this man's very courageous. I mean, they're real patriots. Absolutely. Actually, these are real patriots. Who, one of them who was driving me in an armored vehicle last year in the LA area, going out to the desert, said, "Thank you for what you're doing for those of us stuck on the other side." That's what he said, and he was referring to the fact these are good guys who got moved without their knowledge. It just crept up on them, where they realized once they got high enough in the program that they were in an illegal and unconstitutional
Can I ask you a specific, just for the public, in terms of here we are, December 19th, during Christmas or the next 2 or 3 weeks, if you don't know, you wouldn't know, but will there be more of these drones or objects over more cities, less, or the same?
They seem to be around a lot of cities all over the world right now, not just New Jersey.
Or is it going to be a global thing? Will it probably increase? But if they see this podcast, they'll know that there might be outed in a few weeks. So I don't know if that would reorientate anything, but.
Well, it is. It's a very dynamic situation that's changing all the time. There are a lot of levers and buttons they can push. If you want me to go through them, you won't sleep tonight.
Oh, thank you.
Are we safe? I'm just going to ask you.
I already have a full diaper.
Good. No. Until there's an executive order from the president and similar orders from Great Britain and other countries where this organization has operations, that gives potential to a group that I've been working with, again, for about 20 months. It's a separate group. They're not part of these secret UFO programs, but they are all special forces guys that have been asked to be part of an operation to take down these illegal sites and neutralize those weapon systems. Now, I've been providing that team with intelligence and briefings for about 20 months. These are mostly Green Berets that have separated from the military and who are preparing to go active. Now, what we're hoping is that doesn't have to happen, at least not in a kinetic or violent way, but that there will be enough people defecting from those operations that they're rendered non-operational. I wouldn't bet the planet on it. So I think it's very important, whoever is the president when this comes out, and I'm told it'll happen sometime between now and early January. So to me, early January means before the 15th.
Biden, yeah.
So that could be Biden, and it could be no one will deal with it until sometime after, because they'll have to get their sea legs on. I'm heading out tomorrow to go to some meetings with some people who are very close to the incoming president. By the way, to be on the record, I've dealt with any president, left, right, center, in their administration for 30 years. I'm not partisan at all. But if it's the office of the president, right, that we have to look at, and the Constitution and the government and our freedom, right? So I just want people to be very clear, whether it was Clinton or now it's Trump, or in a time when Obama had John Podesta, who put his cabinet together, was working on trying to find out what this was. Across the board, I've just worked with them. And same thing overseas. I mean, my job, and also, just to be clear, I'm just a private doctor who did this because I found out about it and started this whole disclosure project operation back in the 90s. But I have no official position with any government at all. And I've never wanted one, frankly. It would put shackles on us, because right now we have 7. If you go to we just put about 34 years of research online. It's called the DPI Archive, Disclosure Project Intelligence Archive.com. Right. So DPIarchive.com, and you'll see at DPIarchive.com an unbelievable amount of content. We're talking 115 or so named whistleblower witnesses, name, rank, serial number, testimony, the list of another 600 plus whose names are redacted because they don't want to be out in the public yet, that I have debriefed, thousands of pages of government documents, about 122 documented cases of our downing crashed extraterrestrial vehicles, and in some cases, man-made ones that look ET. And many of those have named witnesses attached to them. And they're illustrated by a forensic artist. So you see what they look like. You see what the little the ETs look like of different sizes. I mean, some are tiny and some are bigger than we are, but there's a whole different variety of species. So that's
drstevengreer.com.
I put that online in advance of this on purpose, to be honest with you. I knew this was coming. And a couple years ago, I created a crash effort to digitize my archiving. And the parts of it I can put out. Much of it's redacted, obviously, people's names and methods and things that are sensitive. But I'd say 90% of it's out there for anyone who wants to look through it. It's free. Get on board.
So, and going full circle to the public just for a second again. So Biden said today, and another person used this word, there's nothing nefarious. Nothing nefarious about this. So should people be frightened? I mean, it seems like some of these are heavy objects.
Well, they have to say
right
that,
over someone's
right?
house. So why wouldn't you be a little anxious to have a big drone on top of your house? They can crash,
Well, they have. And, that gets hushed up. But, I'll tell you, part of the problem is I'm sort of the leading indicator putting this information out. And, some people that I had that I had been on their shows 3, 4, 5 years ago and say, God, everything you said then is happening. And it's because I've had knowledge of this for a long time. Yeah. Now, if you're the president or you're in charge of the National Security Advisor, National Security Council, you don't want to induce panic and you don't want people to be freaking out. And in fact, that plays to the purpose of this cabal of criminals and sociopaths who are doing it. And the other problem is that if there's an unverified report, say, of a loose nuclear weapon, which is one of the reports I've received, you do not want people to think that that's, something that no one has a handle on. Or worse, if there are objects that are so advanced that they seem indistinguishable from an extraterrestrial or alien object, but they're not, then what do you say about that? I will tell you that I have never met with someone at the most senior ranks of the government, Senate Intelligence Chair, co-chairs, or people on other committees in the House or White House, or foreign leaders or ministers of defense who know much, if anything, about this subject. That is how clandestine it is. And most people only find out later how dangerous that is. I know back in 1997, I briefed and you can look this up, it leaked out on the internet, what's called J2, the head of intelligence for the Joint Chiefs of Staff. And, there's a guy who puts the intelligence briefings together for the whole Joint Chiefs of Staff. He was an Admiral Tom Wilson. And he agreed to having a stand-up briefing that I did at the Pentagon in his offices in April of 97. And before then, I sent him some documents, including a National Reconnaissance Office, which is the top secret spy satellite office, secret memo from Area 51 about this issue. And it had project code names and code numbers on it. That document is in the archive you can see online. It has not been declassified. It doesn't matter because we've declared these projects rogue and illegal and unconstitutional. So they don't have any right of a top secret clearance, frankly. So that's the basis of our whole disclosure project. But the Admiral started digging into this, and before we had the meeting, and he was personally threatened, and he was threatened with having a star taken off his lapel and demoted and forced into retirement. So even his inquiry about it. Now, this is the man in charge of putting together the intelligence briefings for the Joint Chiefs of Staff. So this problem is enormous. I recently was in London from a very high senior official there who knows of a prime minister who, I don't want to say who it is, who when he started looking into this, he and his entire family threatened with being assassinated. So this is serious stuff, my friends.
Look, David, it's the holidays. Okay. So don't lose track of your finances and overdo the spending this time of year. Buying
Good.
gifts and stuff. You know what I'm saying? Parties.
Mhm.
It's just a lot of money. Really, be careful. David, take the headache out of building credit fast with Kickoff. And by the way, and guess what? It's the #1 credit building app in the App Store. Their plan starts at, you heard me, $5 a month. There's no credit check, no hidden fees, and no interest. Capiche?
Kickoff is a credit line that's just for credit building, not for everyday spending.
Love
Let's
it.
say your credit is under 600, it could jump like 28 points your first month. That is a lot. That is
a
legit.
lot.
It's a smart credit hack with no catch, no credit check, no hidden fees, and no interest. I like that. It's simple.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes, I just wanted to join in. I was feeling the mirth because it's Christmas time. It's simple. You make on-time payments. Credit bureaus see good behavior, and your credit grows.
That's what matters. Yeah,
fast.
Credit. That's right. You start building credit immediately for only $1 your first month. $1.
Whoa! You can build credit in your sleep with
like
a
that.
thing called autoplay. Makes sense. You never have to worry about missing a payment, David.
Autopay. Sign up in minutes with your phone. No credit check. You cancel anytime.
By the way, David, Kickoff is the #1 credit building app out there.
I was going to say that. I was going to tell you that.
Yes, it has over 100,000 positive reviews on the App Store. 98% are, I'd love this, 5 stars. Good night.
Listen, worry less about your credit. Enjoy the holidays more with Kickoff. For a limited time, get your first month free. Go to getkickoff.com/superfly.
That's
today.
right.
That's the important part.
Hurry for a month free of Kickoff without the C. Get KIKOFF.com/superfly.
Must sign up via getkickoff.com/superfly to activate offer. Offer applies to new Kickoff customers first month only. Subject to approval. Average impact of 28-point increase in the first month based on Equifax Vantage Score 3.0. Changes for Kickoff customers with starting credit below 600 who made their first on-time payment between January 2021 and March 2024.
Payment and credit activity outside Kickoff can have an impact on your credit. Terms and conditions may apply. Offer subject to change. Individual results may vary. So just to reiterate here for people who are just joining us,
Yeah, I have a
Dr.
question.
Greer, trauma doctor, comes upon this information in the late 90s, and then you've really devoted the last 25, 30 years to exposing it, along with different other things, extraterrestrials and UFOs and all kinds of things like that. But this in specific. And then perhaps by January 15th, a whistleblower will come out, and this will be the seminal moment of all this 30 years. If it's the way it comes out, and if the world discovers this secret military rogue operation that's been dealing in all these.
So they're mirroring the alien non-human, so you can't really tell the difference of people will think it's an alien, or this is sort of good versus evil. There's good people involved trying to beat the people that have all this information also, and they're a little ahead of the game.
Well, let's say the constitutional government of the United States is several thousand years technologically behind this rogue element. That's the real problem. They do not have the technologies of this
iPhone versus Lego.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we're talking smoke. I mean, the world we're living in right now, my friends, is smoke signals. And this organization that's very transnational have things that are equivalent of beyond the speed of light stuff. So I think that we have to look at this in a very dry-eyed way. I'm not at all hopeless about it. It's a difficult time. I knew it would come to this at some point, and I was very shaken about 19 months ago when 2 groups of people approached me. One are these deep, covert illegal operations guys wanting to come forward, and the other is this group that were asked to be stood up to take down these illegal programs. And that happened within about 2 months of each other. And they didn't know each other. And I had put them together in a handshake. The director of that team, that would be the strike team to get these illegal sites under control, has joined me out in the desert and met this gentleman and some of the people on his team. So they're communicating. But the defectors are being very careful. He hasn't given me a date. He's just given me a general idea of what the evidence that would be dumped out would be, and it would involve the non-human craft, extraterrestrial craft downing. Now, one of the sites I was over, he just turned very nonchalantly to me and the director of this Green Beret and said, "Look, we knocked down 1 or 2 extraterrestrial vehicles per year over this one site. Then we flew 100 and some miles out in the desert to another site that similarly has the same equipment." Now, one of the things they're using to do this, people go, "Yeah, what are you using?" I'm using bullets and I'm using lasers. They're using a very advanced version of an electromagnetic pulse weapon. Now, of course, these are illegal under the International Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, but they use them. And they are at these test ranges for both the man-made ones to harden them, see how they will work. But when they when they have an opportunity to pick up an extraterrestrial vehicle, they can target it and knock it out of the sky. Because what an EMP, a directional energy weapon that's EMP, does, it has also embedded in it something called a scalar or longitudinal electromagnetic field that is multiples of the speed of light. Tesla talked about it back in the, I think, 30s. And those will totally disable all electronics on any object that is in 3 dimensions, let's say, that isn't trans-dimensional. And so
welcome to Earth.
Yeah. Well, and this begs the question, why are these other non-human civilizations here? They're certainly not hostile, at all. And given what I know, what we've done to probably 1,000 or more of these objects, and thousands of these ETs have been killed. Some are still living, by the way. There are some that are still captured alive in some of these underground facilities that we would like to see liberated.
Aliens.
Yeah.
Still alive.
Aliens are from Guatemala and Venezuela. Let's not mix things up, for God's sake.
I know, that's my bad. Yeah.
That word,
the aliens.
Half the time you use that word the way it's used in our culture, you're talking about someone from wherever.
What's the proper term? Non-human?
I just call them extraterrestrial.
Extraterrestrials, still good. Now, can these energy weapons affect weather? Are they part of anything? Start fires? Can they do really anything? They're just way advanced. We don't know. We can't.
Those would be. I do. Those are different weapons. They have the ability to trigger fault lines and cause earthquakes. There are all kinds of
great.
Yeah, lovely things. All right. So, I don't want to. I don't want to go too far.
No, it's great.
It's good news.
No, I'm not scared. It's just sorry, little Woody Allen here.
Yeah.
There you go.
Where would the safest place to be on the planet right now?
Not on the planet.
My grandmother on my dad's side was Cherokee, and the saying, Native American saying, is there are no safe places, only safe people. So you be with good people, and that's what you should be.
Cross
doing.
your fingers.
Yeah.
So being in major city centers is not more dangerous right now.
I don't want to go too far into that. It depends on your own worldview, but
I got you.
Privately, someday I'll tell you what I do.
Well, what about when they say this nuclear bomb day, and of course, then they show a photo of it was in a truck and then it was gone. It never made it. I'm like, I didn't know they're shipping these by UPS 3-day air. You think they have
one on Amazon
security around them where they go, hey, has anyone seen the bomb we had? Never got to the port. So, and then anyone hears that, and then they run with that for 3 or 4 days, and it just goes in a spiral. And Congress seems like some nice people there genuinely aren't being told, obviously, and some people do know, and they're not saying it. So I guess it all just points to don't cause a panic, because, but how do you not do that? Is there just, I had heard maybe from you or someone in the past that these extraterrestrials, there's they want to be known at some point, and no one could ever be ready for it. It's just, is there ever a point when people could get their head around it?
I think that, this gets into the question of how is it disclosed? If it's disclosed truthfully, it would be told that these are, these civilizations would be the equivalent of Gandhi or Martin Luther King. I mean, they're obviously concerned about our violence and our weaponization of space and our use of atomic and then nuclear weapons. That's why you have had so many reports around nuclear sites, both civilian power.
They don't want that, right?
No, because one of the things that happens when you detonate one of these atomic or nuclear weapons, it puts out an electromagnetic pulse, but it also puts out, embedded within it, a scalar signal that tears the fabric of space-time. Is a complicated physics. And I'm working with a man with 6 PhDs who works for one of the big corporations, and his specialty are these scalar systems. And so I think when we detonated those first atomic weapons in 1945, it's well documented that there were extraterrestrial vehicles and sightings around that time. There was a crash of one in 1945 at White Sands. Everybody has heard of Roswell, but there have been many of them. But those don't just come, you don't go through interstellar space and can't fly through a thunderstorm. I mean, every jet pilot I know can do that. These were, even back then, we had a type of electromagnetic weapon that, with low yield, with low success, if you can call this success, were effective. Now the systems are quite advanced. And the big worry here is that at what point, if we don't fix our own problem as humans, at what point will it need to be corrected for us, which would actually be the worst case scenario. I don't think at all that they're hostile. If they were, we'd be, as one congressman said to me, we'd be our charcoal briquette floating through space would be done, right? Because when all this started, remember, we had vacuum tubes. We didn't even have transistor. We didn't have integrated circuits. So, or any of that. So obviously these civilizations are trying to be very patient, but I think we're getting close to end game here. And here's why. One of the reasons why these guys are defecting, it's not just this one guy, it's people from 6 black sites. And is that the technologies that have been reverse engineered and put into deployment as weapon systems are so advanced that organization has become a threat to extraterrestrial peoples. So, in other words, we've downed their objects, studied them, and over these 7 decades come up with technologies. But instead of saving the biosphere with so-called zero-point free energy or what have you, they've been kept very secret, and they've been used by this Frankenstein that's gotten up off the table and walked away. And I don't know that that can happen much longer. So the people in that system who are now, they may have started out as the Delta Force Green Beret in their teens or 20s, and now they're middle-aged and at a senior level. They know how dangerous this is, and that's why they're taking these risks to come forward. And it's why I did. I'm 69 now. I should be retired and just seeing my 12 grandkids instead of this madness. But, when you realize what's at stake, you just say, I got to do something, and they're trying to do what they can do. So they've reached out to me to sort of speak to this in the preparation, but also to get this information to various leaders around the world.
Could I ask you a question about the rogue military organization? One thing I'm just trying to connect the dots here.
Sure.
Is that because they came in contact with alien technology, they had this power, and so they used this power to create this rogue thing. But in the big picture, what is their goal for themselves? Because they're human, right? Do they want world domination, billions of dollars? What is their?
It's like a movie.
They're just sociopaths that want to.
Yeah, no, they are. They're sociopaths. Some are psychopaths, and they have the ability to hoax all kinds of stuff. There was and this has been threatened against me, by the way. There was a whistleblower last year who wanted to come forward from an operation that had been out in the northern Nevada desert. They're called the Nevada Test Range, where we used to detonate atomic nuclear weapons and test them. who was on a team retrieving both disabled man-made UFOs. They were triangular ones. Mostly those were built by Northrop Grumman or Raytheon. But then he escalated to being part of a retrieval team when they stunned and it just landed. It didn't crash, an extraterrestrial vehicle.
Mhm.
And when he tried to defect, he was harassed. They actually set up a fake abduction event. We have the whole account. He was going to come to Congress and privately brief Senate Intelligence and Armed Services people and go to the Pentagon to give his testimony. We were in the process of booking his ticket. And there were guys that showed up at his door and they said, look at your phone and look at your computer. And they had embedded child pornography all over it. And they said, you will go to prison.
That's the easy one, right?
All right. And that kind of that dirty tricks these guys can do, the deep fakes, the AI associated stuff, the ability to penetrate. And so often what happens, these whistleblowers, they get right to the edge and then these thugs pull a trick like that. Now, I've had those games played on me for almost 30 years. I mean, I've had death threats, I've had attempts, I've had defamation, all manner of horrible things. And I was told yesterday it's going to get much worse for me in the next little bit. And I said, well, you just bake this into the cake, and people who are stupid enough and gullible enough to believe that stuff, go believe it. But I think this is very much stops dead in the tracks most people, because between those threats and I don't talk about this that often, but back in 1992, as a young doctor, when I first started getting involved with this, the head of Army Intelligence, General Stubblebine, offered me personally $2 billion if I would join his team and not pursue what I'm doing. That was a lot of money back then.
Where would he get that money? It's $2 billion. How does he?
Comes
He
out
would
of
just
that
move
that
government
trillion
money
he was
around.
talking about. There's just so much money
Just
flowing. We don't even know where
moving
it is.
government money.
Well,
to the
what he
government,
told,
that's like
no,
$1.
this was, no, there are all kinds of creative
20s?
sources.
Yeah.
No, this was going to come out out
all
of
in
seized
20s.
assets out
okay.
of Eastern Europe after the collapse of the Soviet Union.
5,000
they were-
G-Wagons.
But I mean, this was 92, right? So we're talking 32 years ago. And they had seized.
Was there a number where you
assets.
would have said yes? I mean,
Yeah, what was your number?
what
Good
if you
God.
said
No.
Mine was a little
2
lower than
billion
that.
is
No, I mean, because that would be 10 billion today, wouldn't it? If I invested it well,
you'd be on
I'd
easy
have more
street.
than I'd be better off than Elon. That's it. But anyway, I don't care about that. I've never cared about that. But but this is what my point here is: people who have this sort of information, you're offered enormous amounts of money and threats. So it's blackmail and bribery all together.
right.
And the problem is most people are going to succumb. At a certain point, you're going to cry uncle when the pain gets so great. I've had 3 people on my team killed over the years.
In suspicious ways.
No,
obviously.
absolutely killed by these people who did not want this out.
So you
and
must
then-
have some anger too, then.
Yeah, I mean,
You're
it's just-
human.
Of course, but everyone knows what we're signing on to. And I'll say that these guys who they really are patriotic. They're in a bad situation. I know. Visualize, just everyone listening to this for a minute. Imagine being a young man and you're, very well trained special forces, Delta, Green Beret, Navy SEAL, and you get pulled into operations. They're all top secret, special compartmented information. Need to know, very compartmented. And you just do, yes, sir, you do your thing, yes, sir. Next thing you know, you get high enough in there, you realize, wow, this is illegal and criminal. And then you get introduced to criminal activities such as arms running, drug running, human trafficking, monstrous embezzlement schemes, and things like this. And so at that point, you've been part of something. How do you come forward? Now, one thing we have arranged is that there is a law enforcement operation that I'm dealing with that's connected to this strike team that needs to be stood up under an executive order. It needs to happen yesterday. But I don't know that the Biden administration wants to touch this yet, and unless they're forced to. And then, of course, on January 20th, if all goes as planned, then there'll be a new executive or president. So at that point, this has to happen. But they have already, through this law enforcement entity, extended immunity to anyone coming forward. So in other words, and I want to say this very clearly,
That's good.
that anyone who wants to come forward should contact me, drstephen.greer.com. If you are a legitimate whistleblower and you have been involved in some things that you found out were not legal, you can get immunity for that and come forward. And we're also asking for very serious protection. Now, the level of protection we can provide now is 24-hour surveillance if there's any threat that comes your way. So that has been put in place. So this is how we have a heads up. And I won't say how that's being done because that's sensitive. Okay. And it's TSSCI stuff. But and I have certainly that around me. But
the drones will continue tonight.
Well, they're probably going to continue until at some point. The worst case scenario, my friend, is they escalate this. In other words, we're sort of batting this aside and saying, here's what it is. You know, it's like the movie. If you ever saw The Wizard of Oz, it's a great metaphor. So there's this old crudmudgeon that's behind the curtain. They finally pull the curtain back. And here's this old crudmudgeon scaring the bejeebies out of Dorothy and all the, whoever the scarecrow. And he's just this old decrepit fool. But that's what this is. But it's still scary. I mean, they have enough technology to project that kind of fear.
It just disrupts your lifestyle. You're like, what's going on? It's so abnormal.
Yeah. And you know what they call it? They call it stagecraft, this kind of deception and operation. But the question is, then do they get really more serious and start?
What does it get them just to do this? Just to scare people for what end?
Well, they want people to think that we're under some kind of alien attack because it being unknown. My job is to say, no, those aren't aliens or extraterrestrial. That's our stuff. And even the advanced stuff you're seeing are actually not, they sure look like they could be not of this world. Or keep in mind, what is 75 years and trillions of dollars in black budget funding get you technologically when you have the real McCoy? You actually have the interstellar and extraterrestrial vehicles.
When they disappear just in midair, that's just going faster than we can comprehend.
Well, there's two things. No, actually, it can be going so fast like a speeding bullet you don't see it. Right. But it can also be where, let's say you have a big object and you can create an electromagnetic field effect around it where it takes all the matter of that object out of, let's say, sync with 3D. And it goes into another, it's transdimensional. So it actually goes from one dimension to another and back. So that's, there's a whole spectrum. I understand these technologies very well, by the way. And it's a whole spectrum of phenomenon. And one of the big problems arises from people in the National Military Command system not read into the human ones that look extraterrestrial. They can be tricked. I know of a 4-star admiral who was the commander-in-chief, Atlantic Command, SYNC Atlantic Command back in the early 80s. And there was one of these objects that came off the coast of Newfoundland. And we have this from our Disclosure Project witness. His name was Merle Shane McDowell. He's in our archive. You can read his transcript and see his interview. I have been at that command center, basically where World War III would be fought. And, they run all the nuclear submarines from there. And when this event happened, the admiral panicked. They went to a full code zebra alert, which means if you don't have a zebra badge on your lapel, the Marines with M16s kill everyone in there who shouldn't be in there. And they didn't know what this thing was. And so he got on the hotline to Moscow. It wasn't ours. They said it wasn't theirs. But if certain things had escalated, if actions on our part had escalated or been miscalculated, we could have been in World War III. This was in 1980 or 81 or something. So the danger of this is not knowing. Knowledge is power, but ignorance on something this important is very dangerous for our nation and the world. So my whole point right now is to let people know your ignorance of this subject is no longer a luxury we can afford if you're in that system. If you're in the legal constitutional government of the United States, Democrat, Republican, socialist, I don't care. You've got to understand these things. You've got to understand the technologies. Now, I have put together a 312 executive briefing document that's being given to key people in the current and the incoming administration and Senate Intelligence and Armed Services and some other people.
So you could be face to face with President Trump in a month or so in the Oval, debriefing him.
Saying this.
I'm not going to comment on what
Well,
we're
could-
already
It's
doing.
possible.
I won't
Yeah.
be doing that, but
Yeah.
it's possible you know.
I go wherever I'm asked to go if there's someone sincere who I think needs to know the details.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I have one more question, and then we'll let you go. But appreciate you being here.
Yeah.
Where's Elon in all this? He seems like he knows the most about space. And
That's a good question. I have not spoken with him. I know people who work with him closely. To the extent he's been read in or informed about this is unknown to me. I think the other person, there are some other people I have been meeting with, I'd rather not name, that are
okay,
incoming cabinet level and very high key people for national security that have a need to know, and that I've been providing this information to in the last few weeks since the election. And they're very responsive. They're concerned. And I know that, for example, RFK Jr. Knows that his uncle, Jack Kennedy, was killed by the CIA for something related to this. And he suspects his father was also. So, and in fact, I have a source in London that actually has all the information on that he's going to hand over to me fairly soon. He's a very senior person in the British establishment.
A lot of shoes to drop in the world.
Oh, yeah.
Soon.
I mean, this
Yeah.
stuff should have never been kept secret. When I met with, I don't know if you all remember, now I'm dating myself. I mean, I was a child then, but
we're in the same. Yeah.
Yeah.
go ahead.
Did you ever see Felix the Cat? That was the
Sorry.
cartoon.
There you go. So I don't know if you guys remember 1964, this Senator Barry Goldwater.
Very much
Arizona.
so.
Yeah. And
What vice?
Arizona.
Something
And-
is not a vice. Freedom is, whatever.
Yeah,
That was his.
and he was running against Johnson, right after Kennedy was killed,
Mhm. Yep.
President Johnson. And when I met with him back in the 90s at his home there in Scottsdale, he said it was a goddamn mistake then and a goddamn mistake now that this was ever kept secret. He was cursing up a blue streak. He's a character.
Oh.
And he told me a very interesting story. And these stories are important because you can extrapolate it across the system. So imagine you're in the running, a 50-50 chance or so to be the president of the United States.
Mhm.
You're on all these key Senate committees. You're the senior senator from Arizona.
Mhm.
He had a very good friend named General Curtis LeMay, who at one time had been head of
Know
the
all
Air
about
Force.
him. Yep.
And they called him Bomber back to the Stone Age LeMay because
Right.
he wanted to drop nuclear weapons into China and Vietnam. Yeah.
Yeah. He was a bomb guy. Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
oh yeah. But he also knew about this issue, some limited.
Yeah.
So at one point, Senator Goldwater asked General LeMay, I want to get into the quote blue room at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, which back then there was a lot of extraterrestrial material that was sent there. And all the way back to the 40s, by the way, Wright-Patterson, very key. And he said, General LeMay turned to him and said, God damn it, Barry, I can't even get into that area anymore. And if you ever ask me about this again, I will personally see that you are court-martialed out of the Air Force Reserve. Because Barry was a general in the Air Force Reserve. So I'm sitting in Barry Goldwater's house, and he's dropping this shit on. And I go,
Wow.
was he serious? I said, was Curtis LeMay serious? He says, oh, yeah, he was serious as a heart attack.
Huh.
And so
Lord.
subsequently, he did reach out to a member of this cabal. He asked me who's involved. I started naming names. I came across one was a senior admiral who had become deputy director CIA and head of the National Security Agency, and Admiral Bobby Ray Inman. And he I just gave you a name. He's still living. And he yeah. Don't worry, CIA is listening too.
Sorry.
Great.
And you know what he said? So this was back then. So he after I had this meeting, so I said, well, why don't you reach out to him? He said, oh, I've known Bobby Ray for years. So I said, oh, great. Because Bobby Ray Inman moved from director of National Security Agency over to the board of Science Applications International Corporation, SAIC, that's done a lot of this covert contracting related to UFOs. So he reached out to him. he later got back to me, and his daughter got back to me and said, Dr. Greer, he can't make any more phone calls like that for you. He can't. It's too dangerous. And I don't know what Admiral Inman said to Senator Goldwater, but it put the fear of God in him, and he never brought it up again. But I have a lovely letter from Senator Goldwater about it. It's in our archive if you want to look at it. But, he was just like he was an interesting character. He was more like what you would call a libertarian today, I guess. Because he certainly was not a far right religious person by any stretch.
He was the guy who told Nixon, "You got to go." He was the guy who walked down the White House. Said, "When you lose Barry Goldwater, time to go.
You're done. We're done."
He was definitely a tough character.
I'm from Arizona. I knew all about. I grew up with Barry Goldwater.
Yeah. Well, you probably know where his house was in Paradise Valley. In that area.
I can't disclose that, but yeah.
We can't. We have.
I want something to not disclose.
Just take that story. Imagine being at that rank. And you're a reserve Air Force general, you're Senator Goldwater, and you are absolutely blocked from knowing this. So, and that is in the frickin' 60s, right? So this whole train has been out of control, off the tracks since I was born in 1955. Not quite, but yeah.
Well,
wow,
it's a lot. It's a lot to think about.
It's a lot. We're
not done with you. We are
to
for
watch
now.
this podcast twice because there's a lot of information in it.
Yeah,
I know. I apologize.
But no, not at all. I mean, it's all very, very interesting. Just take care of yourself, and thanks for coming on to our show. Really, really.
All right, love you guys.
We will talk to you again soon.
All right, thank you.
We do need to have a diplomatic outreach to these extraterrestrial civilizations and stop shooting them out of the skies, which we are continuing to do, because that's dangerous. That is a world security risk no one's talking about.
Let's not poke them. Yeah,
well, we already have. We already have.
So they've crashed, or we've shot them down, or both?
We've shot them down.
Jesus. Ready? Here we go, Dana. We're on.
Yep.
Look at me, not looking. I look all right. That's all we care about. That's all that matters.
We look at ourselves so much when you do podcasts, and I just stare at myself, and then I cry myself gently to sleep at night.
Yeah, I think that's the regular. I take a sip of ZQuil. I never take the whole thing. You know how they have a cap on top of NyQuil?
Oh, I hate NyQuil. I only take when I'm incredibly sick because it's so you're so messed up the next day with NyQuil.
The trick is, I'm going to tell our crowd, you don't take the whole goddamn cap. That's for like a 900-pound person. You have to I take a half a teaspoon like this.
Excuse me. What about the capsules? You just take one capsule.
Excuse me.
Excuse me. Let me just interject this. Excuse me. Oh, that's funny.
That's
Trump comes up too late with our guest. He comes up late in the.
Oh yeah. We should tell everyone we have a guest today, and it's not one of your typical jokester clowns.
We're walking outside. We're working outside the lines a little bit today. We actually have a scientist and an actual doctor.
Very interesting dude. He's I got into him because I saw an old documentary called Unacknowledged, and it was about UFOs and the state of UFOs and are they real? Have we seen them? And it really kind of blew me away. And then I followed this dude on Instagram, so we hit him up, and he's like, "Yeah, I'll roll on." So he bopped on, and we had a really interesting chat, and it went in different directions I did not see coming, and I'm still trying to compute all of it.
I think this would be useful just because it's almost like reading the synopsis of a movie, that he has two lanes. One is that there's been an energy system that's been around for 100 years that because of different special interests or conspiracies or fossil fuel companies, it's been suppressed, but it would solve all of our energy issues on Earth with no pollution. That's a world he lives in.
That's
one lane.
Big one. That's a big one.
And the second lane is that most of the UFO stuff we see is done by government agencies and or corporations as kind of a fake out, a lost leader. Look over here. So thirdly, there are actual aliens visiting us.
Yeah,
they come in peace. And finally, he'll talk about how we communicate them is with consciousness, i.e. meditation or spiritual awakening. That's the only way, because that's the way they communicate. And so they visit us. They're watching us. They're worried about us. I asked if they knew how the universe got created, and I'm going to let you.
No spoilers. Yeah, we
No,
spoiled too
no
much already.
spoilers. And
They say they're shot down in peace.
And I came to it with an open mind and an open heart. Just like, tell me what you think.
You know, all based on documentation. That's why it's interesting. He has everything to back it up. Okay.
Yes.
Now let's get into that's in a minute, but we have to do our clown show for a minute.
Clown show. Wow.
That's an
We're supposed to do thumbnails.
Yeah, show us. We talk about UFOs.
You always do the fish thing.
I know, because I want it to be as weird as possible. So the freeze frame. Have you seen the freeze frames on YouTube, Dana? They're crazy. That's a good one.
Well, that's Garth.
Ooh.
Hey, he talks about aliens.
Yeah, Garth liked it.
Okay,
so give me some headlines and we'll talk about them, and then we'll get to Dr. Stephen Greer. What do we got? Throw something up and I'll just go. I just go.
Yeah, I haven't seen any of this. It's like a magic trick. I barely know David
look.
Spade.
We were both on the cover of Rolling Stone, Dana, and I saw yours. And this is a big deal. This is back when Rolling Stone was really, really a big deal, especially when Dana's was on. It was just before. This is a great, cool picture.
Bill Zemi. I have a couple thoughts about this.
Yeah,
go ahead. You can chime in if you want.
Yeah.
Well, one was that the first day I showed up, the photographer, I met him in a laundromat. He wanted me to have no clothes on and hold a laundry basket in front of me.
This is a good idea. So what did that's the photographer wanted? Okay.
That's what he wanted. I mean, he's a great guy. He's a brilliant photographer. We could look up his name. But then he also wanted to put me in a tutu or like a ballerina dress.
Comedy. Hat on a hat.
So I said to him, look, I'm only on the cover of Rolling Stone probably twice. Whoops. Once for Wayne's World. And so we went with this. And then he goes, well, okay, you know, the old swallow the goldfish. So I spent hours with real goldfish. But as it sits there, it looks like it could be a fake, right? But it's an actual live.
I thought that was fake, but I did like this photo. I think it looks cool. I think you look cool.
I think it's fine, but there's one more final thing, David.
Keep talking.
Look at it and let me see if you can tell what it is.
You have something on your coat, flower.
No, he decided to take my eyes and make them sort of brown hazel. I ran into him later. I go, well, I have blue eyes, pale blue eyes. I mean, they're stunning.
Oh my God.
And he goes,
really?
I just felt like doing that.
That's totally against the law.
I know. Why would he do that? So
you know what's interesting? You look around. Marissa Tomei, this is that era. What year is this, do you think?
This is 93.
Oh, shit. That's right. Mid SNL for me. Okay.
And I wouldn't have done it again. I didn't like the headline. I didn't like Dana Carvey quits.
Yeah, they have to.
Quits. You know, and I wouldn't have done it again. I just didn't. It felt weird when I saw it. So
I felt the same way about mine, because you'll see it. By the way, it says hot list. I have the hot list on mine. I think it is. No.
Yours is. They wanted me to wear those pants too. Is that photoshopped, or you have?
This is what everyone turned down. No, it's the same thing. I had Mark Seliger, great, well-known photographer.
Mark Seliger was the guy, and he's great, and he did what I want him to do. But that's what happened. If he listens,
no, he listen. When you're up
against
a artiste photographer who's a big deal, and I was not a big deal. I somehow, this is during Just Shoot Me. Yeah. So I left SNL, got on Just Shoot Me. Just Shoot Me's doing well. So shock of my life, they get me on Rolling Stone wants me. I meet Jan Wenner. Now look at TV forecast, hot and horny. Is that me? I guess
I got
that's what I was on the show.
See, I like this. This is Mark Seliger, and I think that what he wants it to be outrageous or different or interesting. You've only worn those pants once. We've gone out to dinner.
You know, the problem is I wear them once here. I can probably wear them once to Koi, and then I got to get rid of them because everyone's seen them.
I've never seen you make that face, though. That's an interesting face.
Well, this is 200 rolls of film where I finally left. So the trivia is Manon is on the left with the big blue eyes. She's stunningly gorgeous. Tatiana Von Patz, I think, is on the right. She was sick, the one crouching down. She was sick. So after we did, you don't know which one's the cover. We're doing different setups.
Right.
I said, why don't you let her go home because she's gorgeous and was a sweetheart, but she just didn't feel well. So we just kept with Manon, who has the coverage. I'm grabbing her boob, I guess. But this was, oh, see the feet? These are our pants, and they have. I'm like a centaur. You know what that is? I don't know why. I don't know. Is that a
centaur.
horny thing? I don't know.
It's kind of like a horse, half
Right.
man.
I don't know the symbolism, but it looks cool. The log looks cool.
Mhm.
Grab her boob. We do everything, and we're taking so many rolls. I say he keeps going. All right, well, one more roll. Flashes bother my eyes. My eyes aren't great, so too many
Mhm.
flashes for hours, right? And I'm sitting on a log. Neck's killing me, of course. I'm completely falling apart as per usual. And then I say, "You keep saying one more roll. Quit fucking saying that, or it's over after one more roll." But that's just something they say.
They say last one.
Yep. And he
then it's
last
2
one,
hours
and I
later.
got the fuck up and left. He goes, "We're not done." I go, "Yep," and I left. The balls of Spade, because you push a little dog too long, one day he bites you. Is that how it
Well,
goes?
look, I mean, we don't want to come off like spoiled brats. I mean, it is an honor to be on the cover
Of
of Rolling
course, that was a
Stone. I mean,
huge deal.
I don't know when it became not as big a deal, but it's like everything else. It just
Well, when
goes
they went
out in the wash.
online, and then when it got too political. But
Yeah.
I thought that was such a big deal for me. That was probably 2000. That was right around the year 2000, and that's one of the highlights of my whole career
Well, no,
because
that
what
is
can you
very
mark
cool.
things?
You
And we were
come
both
off
on it. I love it.
you
You were on it
you come
twice.
off SNL, and then you get this hit show, and now you're in Rolling Stone. I mean, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I swear some interviewer tried to fuck me. He goes, "So when do you think you were the most famous?" Isn't that such a backhanded bullshit question?
I it's fame is such a fleeting thing. My Lauren quote always, the minute you're hot, you feel yourself becoming less hot.
You go up in a rocket, the rocket comes down. Well,
Fame is just I don't know. That's a
but the
double-edged sword.
answer, what he was looking for was different points of time, like, oh, you had a Rolling Stone cover. Oh, you had this. But the truth
Mhm.
is, it's present day when you're the most famous because that's when the accumulation of everything, like everyone's seen your movies on TBS, on HBO, in the theater. So reruns, so commercials. More people know me now than they did then. So that's
Oh, well,
the real
definitely. I mean,
answer.
your Instagram is huge, but you're right. At a certain point, for me personally, when I would see older performers, actors, comedians,
Mm.
whatever. I mean, I was at the AFI tribute, Kirk Douglas, because I did a movie with Kirk Douglas and I spoke and stuff. So behind me is Jimmy Stewart, and then
Mhm.
some of the tables, and Jimmy Stewart's like 82. It's Jimmy fucking Stewart.
Icon. Of
And
course.
they said he's not working much. I go, can anybody win the fucking
So
game of
fucking
show business?
rude.
We're saying that the legend of all time, Hitchcock movies, Westerns, It's a Wonderful Life, Jimmy fucking Stewart. Yeah, he's not doing too much. So I said, I got to meet Jimmy Stewart. So
Yeah.
I walked toward him and I'm walking toward Jimmy Stewart. He looks up, I get to him and I go, Mr. Stewart. And he just put his hand on my hand and he
Yeah.
goes, I know. I know what you're gonna say because I've heard it 100
Oh,
fucking
he's
times.
the
No,
legend.
he didn't say that. He just said, I know.
But that's what he meant.
Yeah, he knew
Because
what I
everyone
was
does
gonna
it
say.
to him. Everyone
Yeah. So
falls
the,
all over
the
themselves. Yeah.
point is that the main thing about show business, it's a bitterness factor. You always feel gratitude. You never
Yeah.
feel like it's not personal and you're in it. And I try to honor people who maybe saw me do Chopped Broccoli in 1986 and are hyperbolic around me. I'm like,
I love it.
Okay.
There's levels of fans. People go, do you have fans? Here's the level. The fans are like, hey, my friend said you're famous. Can we get a picture? That's a small fan or absolutely none. Absolutely nothing, not a fan. And then you get people that are sweaty, shaky, and can't believe it. So when you say, oh, these people are all fans of mine, it's a huge level from 1 to 100 of what your fan. They kind of like you. They've seen you on stuff, fine. Or they really like you, or they're like crazed. So when you meet people, you get all different levels. And some don't care really at all.
I'll do a kind of a Jerry Seinfeld thing
Yeah.
because Jerry is so into comedians, and comedy and stand-up specifically, and Lorne Michaels is very into it. So when people make me laugh, first time I saw Martin Short doing Robin Williams on SCTV, then I called myself a fan. You know, anyone who makes you laugh really hard, even if it's in one movie or one sketch, it's such a rare tribe we're in, and it's such an honor. But yeah, we're funny people, and so funny is the cliche. They say funny is money.
Yeah.
Funny is
Well,
rare.
we're not doing pat on the back productions right now, but we do. We're saying that just questions about that.
We're just in that universe.
We're in that universe.
Doesn't mean there's not 3,000 people more funnier than we are.
The way I learned it, Dana, when I was like, oh my God, all these people know me. Like when I just was barely microscopically somewhat fame. And then I overheard someone go, oh my God, there's David Spade. And I go, yes. And when he walks past, he goes, I hate that guy. And I was like, oh, so it doesn't mean everyone likes you. It just means they know they've seen you on something. Now they have to say something nice. Do they like you? Who knows? Okay, keep going. Now, what next? What we're going to bore the people with next? That was interesting. I like that. I like your Rolling Stone cover. That was cool.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
But you know what? Fans, write in which one you like better. I would say I think David's is more interesting.
Oh, I gave you this, Dana. I just thought it was funny that this is a shark that I'm scared of the ocean anyway. This looks like HR Puffin stuff, but
oh yeah, that's not a character on Sesame Street.
I mean, where's Jim Henson?
I'm Mr. Wobbegong Shark.
Don't come down to the Titanic in the submarine. I'll eat you.
First come bite, then come leg. Yummy, yum. I turn him into Yoda.
It's kind of a Yoda. He looks like he's made out of carpet. I don't believe it. This might be fake, but it was on the internet.
There's some alien bugs at the bottom of the, you know.
The ones that are way down there.
The alien stuff, I was thinking on, I'm thinking about evolution and stuff, and people are like, yeah, it's evolution. And I go, yeah, microbe became a little tadpole, became a frog, became an alligator, crawled up, became a dinosaur. So basically, the whole planet Earth, they know at one point was just rock. There was nothing but rock, molten rock. No water even, just a rock. The water came in and supposedly. But here's my idea of evolution.
Okay.
Put a rock on a kitchen table.
Okay.
Stare at it for 4 billion years, and you get Richard Nixon.
Why Richard Nixon?
Just Richard Nixon's there. You know, after 4 billion years from a rock, you have to go through
evil. Yeah, to wait, and then there's people.
And there's Richard Nixon. I'm alive now.
What are you looking at?
I'm not a rock.
Turn me.
All right. So what's our
okay?
Next
Go ahead.
picture?
What's next? What is this? Me again? Let me see. Did I give you this one? Let me see it.
No, this was something.
Oh, you? Okay, let me see.
This sent a little girl getting mad.
Oh,
about
I like this girl.
How expensive ice cream is.
I do like this girl.
Little girl gets a taste of inflation, and she did not like it.
You are about to see the rant of Marnie from the UK. She was ticked off by the business practices of the local ice cream vendor.
Chick is hilarious.
Ice cream van there selling just 2 ice creams with 2 chewing gums in it.
Yeah.
For bloody £9 for 2 of them.
£9 for 2?
Yeah, £9. That is going to get nowhere. The one that comes on my street is either £1 a p or £2. That is going to get nowhere with that.
No, he ain't, is it?
No, he ain't.
That's well.
No, he ain't.
No.
No, he ain't. God damn,
she's
she's worked up.
That's well.
That's me after I eat its
All right,
catch
we're with
steak.
you, Marnie. After doing a little bit of math based off of her.
I like how we show the whole fucking newscast.
It's £9 for the ice cream. They want it, and they're not going to get it.
This motherfucker just said for 2 Otter Pops, we get £9. Isn't it?
I just don't know where a kid gets that personality at that age. They should have cut over to her mother. That's right. They want £9 for 2 ice cream pops,
like
and they're
Christian Bale.
not going to get it. I know my Cockney goes a lot of. I go to Michael Caine every time.
Michael Caine.
I can't help it. Every time I do a Cockney accent, I go to bloody Michael Caine.
£9 for 2 ice cream cones.
You can't be too nice with Michael Caine. It's so nice that that's the way you get him if you want to try to do Michael Caine.
£9 for 2 cones.
£9. We have our next bet. £9. Do we have £10?
That chick was fucking worked up, and her little friend was like, all right, that's enough, Adderall for you today. But I did like her spirit and spunk. She really got into it.
She's
When I was
defined
that age,
spunk.
I couldn't care less how much shit costs. I just say, Mom, give me more money. I can't. It's $9 now. I can't. You gave me 5
man,
quids.
I remember at Jiffy. Well, it was
Pop.
like no, it was 25 cents a gallon for gasoline. I remember that.
Oh boy, don't
I
tell
remember
people
50
that.
cents for
Aging
a
up.
5-hour matinee from 12
I
to 5.
remember.
2 Audie Murphy westerns.
Okay, next one. NBC is using animals to push. Oh, no, this part. Volume. Oh, there's a new documentary called Queer Planet. So let's see what they say.
Gay penguins, bisexual lions, sex-changing clownfish.
This is a queer planet.
You're a clownfish.
Always existed. It's only in humans that we have such a stigma about it.
The idea of just having 2 fixed sexes is clearly out of style.
So that's a new documentary about.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at myself again. Gay clownfish, which is that's your stage name.
There was a kind of a grunge band called Clownfish, I think.
There was?
Yeah, I think so. If there isn't, there is now.
Maybe they did the
Run
music.
with it, kids.
Run with it. All those elephants looked like they were doing was touching their noses, which I heard one of them go, "Hey, no homo." But when you're just touching your noses, it doesn't mean anything. They're just goofing around, probably. But I don't know.
I don't spend a lot of time thinking about are there gay monkeys or
gay animals.
I don't really gay's boring, and that's the way where gay should be. Is just like, who cares? Who cares what you're saying?
They shouldn't even make a show like that, because it's like, don't make it like it's different. Just say, hey, some are gay, some aren't. Move on.
Right. I mean, the trans thing is just sort of the newest thing that people have to accept. And as far as genetic engineering, there will be beastie stuff,
I'm sorry, sir. What, sir?
People will genetically
marry
integrate with animals or become part pig, part human. And they'll be
there's
like,
some kids that
I'm
are cats.
just part pig. Why do you hate me? Are you prejudiced against me? I'm part pig, part man.
Is Peppa Pig single? Because she could marry someone famous, though. Do you know what Peppa Pig is?
You said it, or
it's like a little cartoon or something.
Oh yeah, Peppa Pig.
All right, next one. Okay. That's what she probably sounds like. Let's go down to the beach.
I'm
Peppa Pig.
Oh, I'm Waddle Shark. I'm Wobble Gong.
I saw this in the paper yesterday. COVID's trying to drum up some biz.
Jeez, it's getting it's like an old show business entertainer who's playing out at the I-80, at the Pancake House. Here is Sonny Flopno with his hit song. Well,
COVID.
I did see an interview with Anthony Fauci, and you go, you never know when there might be sub-variants. We got one coming in from Hawaii called the Pineapple Express. We got a variant coming in from Russia called Stoli on the Rocks. We got one from Massachusetts called Baked Beans. I'm Tony Fauci, and from the bottom of my all-new leather, Fauci's go fuck yourself.
Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't have the scare tactic as it used to. When they hear all this stuff lately, you go, please don't start with this again. I get it. People might get a cold, might have COVID, but I don't think everyone's going to run for Z Hills anymore.
No, it's like some virologists predicted that we would get a certain immunity between the vaccine, between herd immunity, and then the trajectory of most viruses is weaker. And that seems to be happening unless you're compromised. I might get letters. If you're compromised health-wise and you're at a certain age group, that's different. But
that has affected my act. It gets weaker.
My message to COVID is come and get me. You want some of this? You want some of this? You got
get some.
Come and get me. Come through the nose. Come through my mouth. Come out when you want.
No, Dana, I told you I saw someone coughing on a plane. And I'm like this. You don't actively cough and not care at all. And they're like, couldn't care less. And then I wake the person next to me and I go, someone's coughing. And they're
So
like,
they didn't even put their hand over their
no,
mouth?
and then
They're
they
just coughing
sneeze.
out?
They cough about 20 times. Then they go, "Achoo." And I'm like, get the air marshal, bring them back, because this is what we need. This is a problem. Okay.
Well, the worst thing is when someone releases a gas cloud on a plane.
I'm sorry.
And
You mean
there's, well, you
a
can't
crop
walk away.
duster?
Yeah, you can't walk away.
They shoot it about 5 inches into that cushion, seat cushion. And like this. One time,
We
I
don't
was
normally
on-
work scatological, but that's just
No, this is a horrible story. I was on a plane doing an opening of something like a Planet Hollywood, and I was in the way back, and my buddy Kevin was back there,
Mhm.
and I had to rip one, which I never do. This is probably the last time I did, and I ripped a gasser, an SPD, and then I got up and walked quickly to the front of the plane. I go, I wonder how much longer. And by the time I got to the front, everyone turned around to the back and went, what the fuck? I go, Kevin, gross. And he goes, what? And everyone goes, gross. And because I beat the crop dusting, and then I stopped and turned around and went, ew.
It feels like your airplane stories are like you're at a restaurant and you're talking to the patrons.
Yeah.
Like you're interacting
I
with
get into it.
everyone on the plane knows you're on it.
That's right. That's how it works.
I try to put my hat down. I'll be flying tomorrow.
I'm like
actually.
this. Oh, yeah, me too. Okay, so let's move it on. We're going to introduce him, and then we definitely want to hear in the YouTube comments and online, whatever, Instagram. Tell us what you thought and what you thought was interesting about this, because I was sort of on the edge of my seat the whole time.
Yeah, it's okay to be a skeptic and ask questions, but I do think that he comes across very likable and very sincere about all the stuff that is going on around our little blue planet. So I would enjoy it.
Okay, so rocket money.
Rocket money.
Most Americans think they spend about $62 a month on subscriptions. They think. But the real number is closer to 300.
Holy tomatoes. That's literally thousands of dollars a year, half of which we've probably forgotten about.
Yeah. I mean, Rocket Money, thankfully, they will find subscriptions. I just found one about the movies or something I didn't know that I was on, and it's been 3 years. So this is what you need, not just one.
It's horrible. Bada boom got your payment. You know,
Bada boom,
Fleekflock.com appreciates your monthly payment.
Yeah, thanks for the free money.
What?
Rocket Money, if you don't know, is a personal finance app that finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, checks on your spending, helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings, which we all would like.
Yeah, and with Rocket Money, I have full control over my subscriptions and a clear view of my expenses. I can see all my subscriptions in one place. And if I see something I don't want, Rocket Money can help me cancel it with a few taps.
Like it's a dashboard and you see, you know, compared to last month, what are you spending? And they can help you with a budget, keep the spending down, what's important to you. They can negotiate lower bills for you up to 20%.
Nice.
So you submit a picture of your bill and they take care of the rest. They deal with customer service, which is not fun. Rocket Money has over 5 million users that listen to this. They've saved a total of 500 million.
Oh my goodness.
Canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740. Wow, $740 a year while using all the app's features.
Stop wasting money on things you don't use. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions by going to rocketmoney.com/superfly.
That's rocketmoney.com/superfly. rocketmoney.com/superfly.
We're so happy today that our guest is his name is Dr. Stephen Greer, and he is one of the world's foremost authorities on the subject of UFOs, extraterrestrial intelligence, and technologies. And I love this, initiating peaceful contact with interstellar civilizations. He's traveled the globe for 35 years. Please welcome Dr. Stephen Greer. By the way, since we're around the same age, you can Google it. Did you see 2001: A Space Odyssey, like when you're about, in junior high or whatever? Do you remember seeing that movie?
Right. Yeah. Yep. Well, I did see it, and interestingly, I'm friends with Stanley Kubrick's daughter, Vivian Kubrick.
You are? Oh
And,
my God.
yeah, we're friends. Yeah.
Dana's jealous already.
Well, didn't it just blow your mind? I mean, and now how did you become friends with her?
She contacted me. Yeah, because she's very interested in the subject matter. Her father was, obviously, who did that movie and some other related material. And so
That movie, The Moon Landing?
Yeah. No, he didn't do that. That's the rumor. We've talked about that. Now, by the way, my interest in this goes back to when I was a kid, because my mom's brother, my uncle, worked for Northrop Grumman and actually worked on the lunar lander, the machine, the module that landed on the moon with Neil Armstrong. That was his project with Northrop Grumman. It was Grumman, became Northrop Grumman, a huge aerospace company. So interestingly, I have this sort of lineage in my family of being involved with putting the first man on the moon. But I was a little kid, of course. When we landed in 1969, I was 14. And ironically, I was up at a little college up in the mountains of North Carolina called Mars Hill. And I was there as a student body president with all these other kids watching this thing happen. It was phenomenal as a young kid.
Unbelievable.
To see that, because my uncle had worked on that machine.
Well, yeah, you have a lot of connection to this world. David, did you have a question?
Yes, I was just going to tell the doctor. I got into it a little bit reading The Interrupted Journey when I was like a kid. About I think it was Barney and Betty Hill being abducted. It was the story, and got into that. I think there's one called Incident at Exeter. It was just all these things that were sort of interesting to me as a kid. And then I came across Dr. Greer, Unacknowledged.
Right.
A great documentary he did.
Thank you.
And I think you started it by saying, a lot of people say there's not enough evidence to show there's UFOs. I say there's too much evidence. And I was like, okay, I'm listening. And I really got into that one. Been following on Instagram. And so we thought our people, it's a little different audience for you, possibly, maybe, we don't know, but it's a wider net to get to, and you do a lot of good work. And we are all interested in sort of the basic sort of questions. And also you're so advanced in this that you've got a lot to say about every possible aspect of this. But we're like fifth graders, and Dana's like,
that's great. No problem. I mean, when I do a briefing for a member of Congress, they're first graders. So
that's even worse. Yeah.
And you're being generous.
So you could give us a little briefing, just because whatever we ask you, you've heard a million times, but we can get into questions later, but maybe just tell us a few things to start for the basic people.
Well, first of all, I'm an emergency and trauma doctor, medical doctor. And got involved with this because of an interest. And so I was very young. And by the time I was a young doctor, I was being asked to come up to Washington to brief the director of the CIA for Mr. Clinton, for President Clinton. And because I had put together a portfolio of evidence. And at that time, about a dozen whistleblowers who had been on the inside of these covert programs being run illegally. So my coming of age of this was in December of 1993, before a lot of your listeners were born probably. And what had happened is that I got a FedEx saying, you're going to be the first person to brief the director of the CIA and the president on this issue. Cool. And I thought this was absolutely a lie. There's no way that's true. So I go up there as a public service because I go, okay, well, if I'm called up here to do this, I'm going to do it. And it turns out that they had been not only denied access, but the president had been threatened and had been told point blank, don't look into this. It's none of your business.
Whoa.
That's when I knew that where there was smoke, there was fire. And so I started digging into this really deeply and doubling down, and started what eventually got known as the Disclosure Project, which was putting together, right now we have 760 whistleblowers in my group, and putting together the documents, the evidence of this, and untangling the web of lies. For example, you mentioned Betty and Barney Hill. That was a staged, man-made abduction, had nothing to do with extraterrestrials. Very few people know this. And to unpack that, you've got to know the history of the technology development from the early 20th century to now that has been highly classified, dealing with energy generation and propulsion. And I found out that the reason this was so damn secret And there were so many mythologies and, no offense, the bullshit associated with the subject. Excuse my language.
No, that's fucking fine.
In reality,
more of that.
Yeah, well, this is, emergency doctors aren't that, they're a bit brusque, All right, here comes the chest tube, bang. Anyway, but so what happened is I saw, well, wait, this is an unconstitutional operation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I eventually got, my uncle retired from Northrop Grumman. He was very supportive of what I was trying to do. And I developed this network of people who had been on the inside of these covert programs. And I realized the reason it's secret is that if this was disclosed properly, without all the nonsense and overlay of mythology, we would get off of oil, gas, coal, nuclear power, public utilities, all of it would be obsolete because we already have that solution. So this is a massive science and technology story. Probably the least significant part of it is that there are extraterrestrial civilizations observing us, right?
That's the most boring part.
Yeah, that's the most banal aspect of it. The real story is a very human story of corruption and money and power. But when I realized, look, we're running the
movie.
We're running the planet into the ground, right? And we have 3 billion people on the planet that can't even afford fuel to cook their food. They're literally scavenging brushes and cutting down rainforests. 3,000 million people. This is a huge problem. And of course, this whole subject has been the domain of the National Enquirer and the tabloids and all that rubbishing of the subject. Yeah. But in reality, the reason it's been rubbished deliberately through psychological warfare operations from the intelligence community is because it's so damn important. And so eventually this overtook my medical career. And I focused in a very laser-like way on this problem for the last couple of decades.
I was just curious. I think it's called zero-point energy, and it's been around 100 years.
Right.
And how does that integrate with extraterrestrials? I had a couple pops for it.
Is that something we found from a UAP spaceship or something?
Well, it's a very good question. It's a great question. Okay, let's look at this. If you go back, and we have a movie, there's a link we can give you guys to a movie called The Lost Century.
Yes.
Which is a follow-on to Unacknowledged. But basically, if you go back to the late 1800s, early 1900s, there were big breakthroughs in electromagnetic theory and physics. And by the 1920s, T. Townsend Brown and the Biefeld-Brown effect had been documented, where you could create a very high voltage system at certain frequencies, cycles per second, and things would levitate, float, anti-gravity. Now, that was on small objects, but it was a big breakthrough that got subsumed and taken in to covert programs in the US government. Now, Nikola Tesla had discovered that there was this energy field. He called it the infinite energy field. And it was a field of energy that had not been quantified, but later was as the 0-point energy field, or some people would call it the quantum vacuum. But
I would.
For the layperson, let's get this simple. Basically, if you have a coffee mug in your house, look at the volume of space inside that coffee mug. There's enough latent potential energy in there to boil off all the oceans of the earth. That it's almost an infinite amount of energy. So when you create a circuitry that taps into that, you could basically have something that looks like your heat pump that would run your house with no utility bills. Or you could have something, instead of a fake Tesla car, as I say about Elon Musk's Tesla, you'd have a real Tesla car that would never have to be plugged into the fossil fuel power grid, right? Because those are lithium ion batteries being charged off a power grid that's 80+% fossil fuels. So these technologies are the ultimate disruptive technologies, but they're a planet saver. And
no wonder everyone's getting killed.
Correct. This is why there have been a number of people on my team killed, and a number of people through history who have been killed.
Good God.
So it's a very heavy lift in terms of understanding this. Now, those breakthroughs were brought together in classified programs in the 40s and 50s after we were able to develop electromagnetic, what are called directional energy weapons, to target and down extraterrestrial vehicles, which we then reverse engineered and studied at my uncle's company, Northrop Grumman, Lockheed Skunk Works, etc., Raytheon. And those technologies combined with these early sort of incipient breakthroughs in electromagnetic theory and energy and propulsion, and we went boom. So by 1954, important date, October 1954, I have someone who is the top scientist at the Naval Research Labs in the vault and saw a document that's when we mastered gravity control, where you would be able to make things fly silently, maybe a little bit of a hum sound like a transformer, against the laws of normal aerodynamics, because you're creating a bubble in space-time where these objects move with no gravitational resistance. And they're using a type of electromagnetic field propulsion that creates what pop culture would call anti-gravity. So you have both free energy and anti-gravity, two separate things. But you could take the one, for example, and just run the planet without any fossil fuel or nuclear or solar or wind. The other is a little more problematic, because if you put things out there that could go from Tehran to here in 3 seconds over to Washington, D.C.,
right?
Then you've got a missile delivery system. So there are aspects of this that are of national security significance. Other parts of it should be immediately declassified. And that's what we're working to achieve. Eventually, all of it should come out. But we'd have to have a much more stable and peaceful world before we got, every Tom, Dick, and Harry had something that would fly at, 300,000 miles per hour.
Would you say that something, most sightings of spacecraft are man-made right now at this point, or is it a mix?
I would say 70 to 80% of them. Now, for example, everyone's seen the hearings on Capitol Hill where David Fravor, the F-18 Hornet pilot off the coast of California, they chased this UFO, the Tic Tac, and also another case off Norfolk here in Virginia. Those were actually ours. Those were man-made. The Tic Tac is out of the Lockheed Skunk Works. If you go through our archive, we've just released a multiple terabyte intelligence archive a couple weeks ago that actually documents all this. We actually have reports of that same Tic Tac from 1967 being documented over the skies of Pennsylvania. So I think that, one of the problems is that this whole issue has to get clarified with some discernment, because not everything that goes bump in the night we don't understand is an extraterrestrial being or vehicle.
So much noise out there.
There's so much noise. So to separate that, you need to have, I liken this to a doctor having a differential diagnosis where, like, if you have chest pain, you can't just assume it's a heart attack. It could be a pulmonary embolus. It could be 100 things. So what's happened with this subject, everything that people don't understand, they just call an unidentified, which in reality is nonsense. They're identified. And there are basically two major categories of these. The man-made ones that no one is looking at, because that's the bigger secret, and the extraterrestrial vehicle. The man-made ones are a much bigger secret, bigger secret. And it's because of the
first time hearing.
Was there a pilot on the on the Tic Tac one that where the there's no one driving the
they don't need it.
Okay.
Some are manned, some aren't. You get some of these giant triangular craft that you see. Those are Northrop Grumman's and Raytheon's. And we have some of our top secret whistleblowers have worked at facilities where they have monitored or built those craft. I have a member of my team who was at the Dugway Proving Grounds in Utah, and one of these massive triangular craft came up out of the ground through an opening and went out, boom. And that was a man-made, but it was manned with manned pilots. I also have a member of my team who actually managed the pilots who flew those things out of the Edwards complex up in the desert of California, who's just come forward. We brought him to the Senate Intelligence Committee in February, and he has provided his information to the key people in Senate Armed Services and Senate Intelligence.
Wow. Well, how many people in the world know about this?
Not many. I mean, the fact of the matter is,
us three, and who else?
Well, I mean, the documentary Unacknowledged has had 780 million people see it. So there are enough people.
Whoa.
Yeah, it went viral on all the black sites in the dark web and Pirate Bay and, all
That
that.
was riveting.
But yeah, and I think one of the big issues becomes, why aren't our policymakers aware of this? It's because they're too busy dealing with ordinary problems. And it's very hard to get, like right now, I just came out of Washington a couple weeks ago. I had meetings with House Oversight Committee folks, and they are not going to be allowed to have a select committee with subpoena power and a staff to look into this. And that got killed by people who are part of this, I hate to say it, criminal operation, who are in the Congress, who have killed some of these bills that have been moving through, that I've been helping move through, and actually providing a lot of the intelligence for, and even the wording for, such as the amnesty provision that was in the bill last year that got killed in the House by the chairs of the House Intelligence and Oversight Committees, Mike Turner and Mike Rogers. But those guys get so much of their money from Lockheed and Northrop and the big aerospace companies in their campaigns. So, this kind of corruption is a huge problem. So politically, it's become a very hard nut to crack, which is why I have pivoted to dumping everything we have into the public domain in the last month through this intelligence archive.
Is that the DPIA?
Yeah, dpiarchive.com. And that's free and open to the public now. It's got everything you can imagine in there, but it'll take you a long time to get through it. It's a massive archive.
Do these
you
big
have a lot of information.
companies right now have alien spacecraft in their possession, like Northrop or
Yes,
what
they
were
do. And
they
I know
do?
where they are.
Silicon Valley or
Now,
where?
one of the things you'll see in the archive,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, no, not Silicon Valley. I mean, nothing.
No, someplace else.
Where nothing important is in Silicon Valley. It's in that. It's in the It's in the greater DC area, and it's an underground bases out west. And by the way, the most important material is not at Area 51. It's actually associated with the Lockheed Skunk Works complex out in the deserts, out
Makes
in
sense.
California and Nevada.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and that's
It's all
where
like
the
a
real
shell game. Like the public believes, look over here. There's other things way more important going on over here. And then
Correct.
now and then you have like a Las Vegas sighting, and then everyone gets so hyped up about that. Is that real? But
Yeah.
don't look
Well,
at
and
this.
so,
Sad.
you know what they call it in the intelligence CIA? They call it stagecraft, where you set up an operation, it's psychological warfare, and you divert people to look over here and don't look behind the curtain where the Wizard of Oz is pulling all the
Right.
curtains.
I fall for it every time.
Yeah,
They're perfect customer.
Yeah. Well, I mean, no, it's no one's fault. I mean, look, these guys are very good at what they do. I mean, and that's how, I mean, early on when I was looking into this, I had no idea. And you'll see this in our archive, the Disclosure Project Intelligence Archive. You will see the documentation of when we started staging false alien abductions for their psychological warfare value. And we now have found and have released the fact that Dr. Jacques Vallée, who has a cameo role in Spielberg's film Close Encounters.
Oh yeah.
of the
Was
Third
he
Kind.
Project Blue Book or no?
Yeah, he was with an investigative team, and then it was Dr. J. Allen Hynek, who also makes a cameo appearance in Close Encounters of the Third Kind, who was head of Project Blue Book, and I know his son. And those guys knew that this was a very complex counterintelligence operation. So what you do, you put out 1 part information, 10 parts disinformation. And that is how you keep it secret, because it keeps diverting people. And they run this game on the public, the media, the president, the Congress. So it's sort of my project's job to be sort of a watchdog on that and blow the whistle on it. But it's a thankless position to be in, because the people who have these belief systems that have built up around, oh, there are aliens who are abducting us. I said, yeah, I mean, I'm sure you don't have to go through 1 million light years of space because they need that guy's sperm and her egg. To make I mean, well, this is the mythology, right?
Right.
I mean, it's horse manure. But so in many ways, I'm a huge skeptic about 90% of what's out there on this subject. But it's only because I didn't start out that way. I discovered this through sources and methods who were direct. In other words, I have dealt directly with men who have staged the abductions. I've dealt directly with people who worked on the man-made devices. I have dealt directly with people who have been on teams that have done the animal mutilations, making it look alien to create this fear factor, right? So, I mean, and people go to what end? Well, it's like Werner von Braun, who invented the rocket for Adolf Hitler. On his deathbed, he told Carol Rosin, who's on my team, who is the first woman in the executive in the aerospace industry in the 70s. And she's about 80 years old now. And she said, look, he on his deathbed said, they're going to stage a threat from outer space, alien, that's totally hoaxed, so that they can sort of create a militaristic junta that would unite the world, not in peace and prosperity, but in fear and war, endless war. And he said that in 1974. So that was exactly 50 years ago.
Well, if you had a spacecraft shooting down at something, like I don't think they've done that yet, but you could blame that, right? Is that the idea?
Well, no, we have done that. We have man-made UFOs that have done that and obliterated entire villages in South America and Africa. You know, we recently found that Dr. Jacques Vallée took possession of a 1985 CIA document. He won't release it. I think he's been threatened. He's still alive.
Let me talk to him.
And it says point blank. It says point blank. And he put this in his book in 1992 that the CIA had been staging alien abductions in Brazil and Argentina against unsuspecting, quote, peasants. So for the psychological warfare value of putting this messaging out that there's a threat from outer space. That is in a CIA document, black and white. And so one of the big problems is, you know, occasionally in science fiction this comes out. Like the writers for the X-Files years ago studied my stuff, and one of the episodes was an expose of the fact that these abductions were being done by black covert teams for their psychological warfare effect. And that was from my material. But
I
but
saw
in
that
terms
episode.
of things that are actually... Did you?
I saw
Yeah.
that,
I mean, I didn't see it. I heard it. I've never seen an episode of the X-Files, ironically, but I don't look at science fiction. My life is so damn bizarre.
I know. How do you hold all this? I mean, do you have just a night out and have a couple beers with the guys? Or, I mean, this is a heady thing.
Oh, yeah. I party hardy. Hey, are you in LA? Oh, come out to LA. We'll party. I'll show you what.
For sure.
No, I'm a party freak. We'll have fun.
Just to kind of, as a layman, just sort of this last stanza you're talking about is that, yes, we do have extraterrestrials flying around. There's this government faction or group of people, corporations, whatever, that fake these alien things as a lost leader, as a fearful thing, so that they retain power over society. And then the second lane is this 0 point energy, the suppression of that. Is that just fossil fuel companies don't want it and pay off the Congress, kind of the classics? Or it's more complex
more
than
than fossil fuel.
Mm-hmm.
It is more. It's about the macroeconomic system. In other words, our whole petrodollar system would have to be replaced. You know, you're looking at something where imagine every village and town or household on the planet, and a senior executive with a Fortune 50 company is defecting onto our team right now. He says, "Oh yeah, for decades the whole world could have had free energy." Well, that would eliminate poverty, but it would also upend the sort of pyramid of at the top down, where there is a sort of select number of global elite interests, corporate individuals that are running amok. I mean, this is like the classical definition of fascism. I know that word is overused, but I'm using it in the way it was actually originated, and that is the industrial interests and moneyed corporate interests overtaking the interests of the people. And Thomas Jefferson, whose home is right down the road from where I am right now, he warned of this in his early writings, of the unchecked power of these sort of corporate interests. But it's not just U.S., it's global. Because you imagine, we're talking over $1,000 trillion in assets that would be unnecessary. If you start adding up all the public utilities, surface roads, oil, gas, coal, nuclear electric cars don't need them. The current electric car system. Solar panels don't need them, although I have the biggest solar farm in Virginia right here because I'm trying to help the environment. But in reality, it's a creaky system that's never going to run the planet of 8 billion people.
Is it another distraction like, oh, you should do this and it'll help everything, but they really have the real answer?
Of course. So that's why they want to push trillions of dollars into the head fake. I call it pseudo-environmentalism. Right. Whereas the real environmental solutions are sitting in a black box out in the desert, right? So I think this is a real one of the reasons I became very devoted to getting this fixed. Two things. One, we do need to have a diplomatic outreach to these extraterrestrial civilizations and stop shooting them out of the skies, which we are continuing to do, because that's dangerous. That is a world security risk no one's talking about.
Let's not poke them. Yeah.
Well, we already have. We already have.
So they've crashed, or we've shot them down, or both?
We've shot them down.
Jesus.
No. And that includes the so-called Roswell incident in 1947. That was, if you go in our archive, you'll see an FBI document that when I got hold of it and released it, became the most viewed document on the FBI website. And it is a memo from a field agent to J. Edgar Hoover talking about that we had switched on a new radar system, which is military speak for one of these weapon systems, right?
Right.
Because you can have radar that's passive, but you can piggyback on that an electromagnetic directional energy beam that will disrupt an electromagnetic craft. And these spacecraft are totally electromagnetic field. So that's how those three discs crashed near Roswell. There were three. One wasn't found until 1950 or 51. But the two that went down, that was no accident. And people say, oh, there was an electrical storm. I guarantee you that if you're traveling through interstellar space,
they can handle
you can navigate a New Mexico electrical storm in the summer of 1947.
Turbulence.
Can I ask you a question?
So this is a very interesting story.
Life can be ridiculous, Dana, but you know what's not funny? Getting ripped off. Harry's Razors agrees. They saw customers getting screwed over by questionable overpriced shaving products and decided to do something better.
Yeah, you go to these pharmacies or whatever, you get these little plastic razors, you start to shave and it just breaks in your hand. And you just throw it in the garbage and you just sit there in the hotel. Yeah, well, yeah, you're bleeding alone by yourself in a dark room. And they're expensive. So instead of charging the same stupid high prices, Harry's found their own way to make a beautifully designed razor for a fraction of the price of other big brands. Exceptional products. Get this, honest prices. That's Harry's.
Yeah, listen, you get it. And then you get this heavy, it's kind of a heavy weighted handle that everybody likes, looks cool, doesn't look cheapo. People that come over go, nice, you know, looks good in the bathroom, sort of makes the place look expensive, your whole house.
It's like being in a movie from the 1950s, you know, the barber chair, getting that shave, that heavy blade, you know.
Looks like it's a real focused, good piece of machinery. And I have a beard for a while and then I get rid of it. And then I wonder how I look. And then I, ask people. But this is the one to get. It's better. It cuts less. Listen, it's got customizable.
It cuts less. Isn't that based on how much you use it?
It cuts. It doesn't cut. And then I used to get like dizzy. I bled so much in the old ones.
Oh no! I mean, what I try to keep it around the chin because I'm chinless basically. So I have a little beard on the side, and then I shave very cleanly down the sides of my face. And with Harry's, it's nice and smooth.
It's very smooth. Listen, customizable delivery options for schedule refills as low as $2, half of what you pay for at big brands. Get a 5-blade razor, weighted handle, foaming shave gel, and a travel cover for just $3 at harrys.com/fly. Nice.
Wow. Extra strength, high quality, amazing smelling deodorant, David, for just $5.
Another $5. Nice. Plus hair, other grooming products fit your unique look and your needs. highest customer satisfaction in the shaving industry. No risk trial. Yeah.
Don't like your
Don't
shave?
like it?
No worries. It's on them.
Getting ripped off. You think it's funny. I don't think it's funny. And that's why I switched to Harry's. Get started with a $13 trial set for just $3 at harrys.com/fly. That's harrys.com/fly for a $3 trial set.
The whole thing is fascinating. I just for a second wanted to ask you about generative AI or AI, which also is people are telling us, they didn't tell us about the World Wide Web, how destructive that was going to be in terms of social media and all of that. But how does that intersect with what you're thinking? Because obviously it needs massive energy, and apparently.
Oh yeah.
But it also will become kind of like this alien brain that we control, or what's your thoughts on that? AI, how it integrates with all the secret government and all those people. If you control it, you control the world, maybe, or.
Well, it can be. You know what I'd say about technology? I just make this simple. As an emergency doctor, I've seen a knife put butter on your bread and slit someone's throat or stab you through the heart.
Right.
So it's the consciousness of who wields it, who has it. So the technology is neutral. It's what men do with it, what humans do with it, right? So what does humanity do with the new technology? Do we turn it into a weapon? Do we turn it into something malevolent? Do we use it for the good? And see, this gets into something that sounds very philosophical and airy-fairy, but really the foundation of having a sustainable civilization is that we have to have advanced technology, but it has to be guided by a higher consciousness. You call it higher spiritual consciousness, enlightenment, some greater interest besides your own, can I become another trillionaire kind of mindset. And I think that is the real crisis, because in the 20th and early 20th century, our technologies have gotten ahead of our social and spiritual development. And that makes humans at a very dangerous place. Now, this is why one of the other projects I run is the Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, where we actually train people to make contact with these civilizations and vector or guide them into a sighting or a landing or a contact event. And there's a movie out called Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, and it outlines all of this. And it's a bit out there. People go, what the hell is this? But it has to do with using this higher concepts in kind of what Neuralink's trying to do, but on a much higher scale, of the consciousness field to interact with extraterrestrial guidance and communication systems through what the CIA called remote viewing, using consciousness to see remote
viewing is crazy. Yeah.
Oh, I know
so
all the top
interesting
viewers. Yeah. Ingo Swann and I were friends before he died, and he loved what we were doing with that, because we were doing it for peaceful contact as opposed to trying to spy on the Soviet Union back when he was
right.
But I know Russell Targ and all the remote viewers, and the top CIA people who are currently working those programs, I know, and they're very positive about what we're trying to do, using those concepts in what's called entanglement in physics or non-locality to remote view and contact these extraterrestrial civilizations and make a peaceful outreach. By the way, we're going to do it. It's open to the public. You guys should come. We're doing a thing in July in Temecula.
Temecula, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to do that. I think there are only about 80 places left, but we're also going to stream it globally. So we're going to do this global CE5. There's an app, by the way, CE5 Contact app, that trains you in remote viewing and doing this. It's kind of, I'm going to do a thing with Demi Lovato's about this. It's so much fun. This is way fun.
Describe what remote viewing is, just for a second. Just in quick remote viewing.
Sure. Okay.
So people.
So, it kind of gets back to what Ben Rich, who was the head of the Lockheed Skunk Works, said in 1995. And he said, someone asked them about this whole UFO issue. He says, well, just remember, every point in space and time is connected instantaneously through this quantum field. Now, that's known as entanglement in quantum physics. The ultimate field of entanglement, of interconnectivity, is the consciousness field. Now, you and I think of consciousness as what we're thinking of. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the faculty of being conscious itself and the experience. It's like in meditation, where before I was a medical doctor, I was a golden boy meditation teacher, went around the world teaching meditation in my first career.
I have a mantra.
I learned, I all these people, a lot of, I won't say who, a lot of celebrities I've taught meditation to, but we went around and we taught people how to go into that deep state. But remember, if you're in that deep state of quiet consciousness, you can awaken to another point in space or time. So you can see with your, say, third eye, a remote place in space or time. So the CIA made a routine program of that in the 70s, 80s, 90s. But it can be used for very good purposes too, besides spycraft. It can be used for knowing things that you need to know, for big discoveries. Many of the big scientific discoveries, like the founder of organic chemistry, went into a dream state and saw the structure of the organic system. And that's true. So it's a really amazing adjunct. It doesn't replace science or intellectual science. It's an adjunct. It's complementary to it. So one of the things that we're teaching people is that these civilizations, I'll tell you, want to hear a funny story? Or is very comical.
No.
So I was with, you do a skit on Saturday. By the way, I loved it when you did Church Lady years ago. Isn't that smash home? I mean, that was my favorite.
Dana, was that me or you?
We like aliens better than we like Jesus.
I think that was Dana.
It was me.
That was my all-time favorite. Anyway.
Thank you. Talk about consciousness. I just want to insert this, Doctor. It's just, you're reminding me a little bit of John Lennon's song Imagine.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Which was basically a plea for higher consciousness. That what you're talking about. And I do think if you can get it together, whoever does this, so aliens come down, kind of like the day the earth stood still, that will propel a lot of forward consciousness in terms of my religion, your religion, So you live in a fascinating
Well, that's what
world.
we're doing.
Yeah. When I'm coming to that.
Actually, anyone who wants to come to this thing in Temecula, I think it's the weekend of July 26, 27, 28.
Yeah.
And in about 2 months. And it'll be fun. We'll be out under the stars till probably midnight, 1 o'clock at this site out near a winery out in the hills outside Temecula. And if you can't come, you can be there virtually through we're going to do a webinar link. So it'll be a lot of fun.
Is that at drstephengreer.com? Is that where people learn about all this stuff?
drstephengreer.com. And the reason we're doing that, here's the reason we're doing it, is that there's in the early 90s, I realized I went to the United Nations, met with the Secretary General and his wife and all these people. Nobody was doing anything to reach out to these civilizations except in a militaristic, covert way to shoot them down, to steal their technology. And I'm going, wait, these are very advanced civilizations, and there should be a diplomatic outreach to them rather than just down the barrel of a directed energy weapon, right? So we started this program in 1990, 34 years ago, called Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, or CE5 Contact. And the app that we have put out recently, the CE5 Contact app, actually trains you in, it's a whole course in remote viewing, contact, all the protocols. It's all in this app. And it's good preparation for people to realize you're not dealing with your granddad's Oldsmobile here, right? Because the way these civilizations communicate, they're not communicating with, like you and I are doing something at the speed of light. But let's deconstruct that scientifically for just 1 minute. At the speed of light, let's say you're from a star system 1,000 years from here, light years, which is very close. That's close in our galaxy.
Chip shot.
At the speed of light, it take 1,000 years for this signal to get there and another 1,000 years to get back. That's time since the birth of Christ to go 1% of the way through our Milky Way galaxy. It's not viable. And when I explained this to the CIA director's wife, who was at our first meeting, she was the head of the National Academy of Science, chief operating officer, and Sue Woolsey. And she goes, what? I thought it had something like that. She didn't miss it. Now, the CI director was a lawyer and a policy guy, and it went right over his head. But the scientists get this if they understand quantum entanglement, because the speed of light's too slow. But what is the speed of thought? The quanta of thought is instant. And so if you have, now here's the trick. These extraterrestrial civilizations have electromagnetic devices that interface with thought. So you think to a computer, no wires, not like
like the spaceships. They don't have any buttons and stuff. They just think about it, right?
You can think to it, it goes, or it actuates. So that is what we call consciousness assisted technology. And I have another thing called technology assisted consciousness, where a technology can assist you in this remote viewing function. So these advanced civilizations have
engine light.
Yeah, it's so cool.
It just tells you in your brain brakes are bad.
Yeah, it's really amazing stuff. And this is where the reason I became a meditation teacher is that when I was 17, I had a near-death experience. And when I was 18, 6 months later, I had this contact experience with these ETs. And it was quite clear to me that the secret sauce of their entire system, communication, transport, everything, was this entanglement, this quantum conscious entangled universe. And that's when the veil fell and I saw what it was. And I went, damn, this is phenomenal. And of course, it was hard for me, because I was raised an atheist, and we didn't believe in anything but what you could put in a test tube.
Do these aliens, do they coexist with potentially Catholicism? And where do they intersect with black holes or multiple dimensions that exist around us? And did you ever see the movie Interstellar? I just saw it recently. That's Chris Nolan's.
Oh, sure.
Film.
Yeah. I've seen it,
all about who put the black hole there. And so it seems, go ahead. Yeah.
Well, you don't need a black hole to do that kind of transportation.
Okay.
You create, in a sense, through these electromagnetic field, you create your own portal or black hole through bending. Here's an easy way to explain it. Look at, if you're looking at one point in space to another, look at that and see it as like, okay, here's this distance. Think of it as being on a piece of paper that you can fold, and these 2 points become right on top of each other.
Yeah.
That's what quantum entanglement is. And so these very high voltage electromagnetic field propulsion systems also have associated with it control of gravity waves. And that's how you bend space-time. So you're not going through a straight line from point A to B. You're actually bending space-time, but you don't need to go through a naturally occurring black hole.
It makes sense. It makes sense. I just wonder where this intersects with religiosity, basically. The different metrics.
I agree with Bill Maher. There's a difference between spirituality and religiosity. Religiosity is a bunch of primates fighting about the lantern that the light came in, whereas spirituality is seeing the light that is in the lantern. And the lantern, the metaphor here would be Christ or Muhammad or Buddha or whoever. So when I was at the Vatican, I actually had a great conversation with the Pope's senior theologian, Monsignor Balducci. And he and I talked about this at length. And they don't have, he's fantastic. He's passed away now. But he's a fantastic guy, brilliant, and genuinely spiritual, even though he was part of the organization of the Catholic Church. And he understood this, and they knew that we weren't alone. And he said, look, we just view them as children of God like we are. That's how he viewed it, which was a beautiful way he put it.
These aliens, do you think they have curiosity about how the universe got here? Do they understand in their consciousness the idea of infinity, something with no beginning and no end? They comprehend that. Because that's the human thing we can't hold in our mind.
That's
first grade.
Here's the thing. No, that's first grade for them. Otherwise, they couldn't get out of their star system. If you're going to go interstellar, you have to also understand this trans-dimensional conscious universe and entangled universe. Otherwise, you can't get there from here. Like Maine, right? So you can't get there from here. There's no way you're going to do it.
Who made the universe? Do they know? Did they make it?
Yeah, it's not a who, it's what. As I understand it, it's the understanding.
It's just always been. Yeah.
No, it's this cosmic consciousness, cosmic mind, intelligence, and you can call it as it appears in any way you want.
I see.
And it doesn't really matter. Although humans like to fight over that. I mean, if you doubt it, go move to the Middle East right now. I lived in the Middle East for 3 years, had a belly full of it. So, it's like, it's like that bumper sticker, "Dear God, please save me from your followers." Right?
Yeah. Well, it makes sense. I mean, by you talking about it, I always need a lot of redundant learning, but I'm really starting to get what you're talking about consciousness and how that, don't look at it the way, make a paradigm shift to this idea of the universe and aliens. And then you just have a lot on your plate. Then there's this 0 point energy and that whole thing, which would reorientate planet Earth, which is a scary place.
100%. Transform it. Yep.
So
it would create a planet. In 20 years, we would have no pollution and no poverty. 20 years, one generation. Almost within my lifespan, even though I'm going to be 69 next month. But, I might.
Because what they say with electric cars is you have to still use the mines to get the energy to put the car. So it's almost like it's not the perfect solution.
Yeah, but David, they're charging those cars off of fossil fuel power grid. And remember, when you burn oil or gas or coal to create electricity, which is 82% of our electricity, you're only getting about 50 to 60% of it is lost in the transmission wires. It's enormously inefficient, very polluting, but because it's not coming out of your tailpipe, people think, "Oh, how wonderful! I'm saving the planet." When in reality, it's a Jedi mind trick by people who don't want you to know about 0 point and quantum vacuum energy, right?
And then where are we going to do with all these batteries?
This very skeptically.
Yeah. Well, I always have an open mind about all this stuff because nobody can tell me exactly what's going on, how we got here, why are we here, what are we supposed to do here. So I have an open mind to everything, really, until someone can say. So this is as good a thing as I. And I'm with you with electric cars. I feel like we pushed them too hard, too fast. And China does not even have natural gas; they have just coal. And then there's all the lithium and sulfur we have to mine and all that stuff. And then where are we going to put all the batteries? I mean, I get the idea of it, but it seems your plan, if we can get that going,
seems better.
Incredible.
Do you know, if you look at the Floyd Sweet device from the 80s, and we have this documented in our documentary, The Lost Century, which documents a whole 100 years of lost technologies. And he had something the size, a little bit bigger than a cigarette pack, that generated enough electricity power to run a 300 horsepower electric engine. And that was in the 1980s. Now, and it never had to be charged and it never had to be plugged in. And I know a colonel in the Army who is on my team till he passed away, who documented it. We have all the evidence for it. He was killed. Floyd Sweet was killed. But eventually, because he had been meeting with people at General Motors to bring this out. They didn't want it out because it would terminate the whole petrodollar oil system. So this is not a conspiracy theory. This is a criminal conspiracy we can prove. So the good thing is that there are a few members of Congress, particularly Senate Intelligence and Armed Services and House Oversight, awakening to this, but they're moving too slowly. So here's a big announcement I have for you on your show.
All right, we're going to
starting June 20th. We have set up, I've been asking for this for 30 years. We have set up a SAP, a Special Access Project, I won't say under what agency, that will protect these whistleblowers. So if anyone listening to this is or knows someone who is a deep cover whistleblower on this, we can now stand up very solid protection. And most of the guys I'm working with who are in that program have been Special Forces Green Beret guys, and they help me with my security as well. And they're wonderful men, and they're very dedicated to getting to the bottom of this. They know that there are high crimes and treason against the United States going on, and that it needs to get resolved. So starting in about 3 weeks, we will be able to extend that protection to high-value whistleblowers.
Wow.
I have a Nane question for the ending before we let you go. And we do have a lot of whistleblower fans out there. Also, just as kind of a backtracking from how serious those talks were, just some story about Marilyn Monroe I thought was interesting when I saw in there too. That she, I think people knew she was involved with the Kennedys, but I don't know if they knew. Well, go ahead. You finish that one.
Yeah, well, some years ago, I had a man who's CIA who got into the vault that have a lot of these documents, and it's a top secret document. It's in our archive. You can look at it, and it's was signed by James Jesus Angleton III, who was the fanatical leak stopper, mole hunter at the CIA back in the early '60s. And it's a wiretap. It's a transcript of a wiretap on her phone in LA where she was threatening Bobby Kennedy and a man named Rothberg, who was an art dealer, saying she was going to hold a press conference to tell the whole world what Jack Kennedy had told her about the objects from outer space from the 1940s found in New Mexico, etc. And before she could do that, and she was going to do it because they had backed off of their relationship and she felt jilted. And she thought she would just put that out there. And before they could, they killed her. Now, there was an old actor and singer named Burl Ives who was on my executive committee for some years.
Burl Ives, of course.
And he knew Marilyn. And Burl was great. And he knew that Marilyn Monroe had been murdered, but he didn't know why. So I went to his house. And at this point, he's in his 80s. This is back in the 1990s. And I give him this document. He goes, "Oh, my God, no wonder they killed her." And so, of course, the whole world would have been at that press conference, right?
Marilyn kind of casually throwing it out there. And then suddenly it's like, wait, we do have spacecraft?
Yeah, exactly. And so the Kennedys didn't have anything with killing her. They were furious. But this guy, the CIA cell dealing with this, and James Jesus Angleton III, by the way, his grandson reached out to me some years ago. But it's a strange network we've developed here. But that was a tragedy, and there are so many people like that who have been trying to get the truth out, and they are naive about the power of these, goose-stepping Nazis who want to keep this secret. They are fascists.
The deep state has got to go. We're going to take it out. The deep state has got to go.
Well, I mean, that got coined after I did a presentation.
Oh, really?
In Washington in 2015. It was called the title of the presentation. It's on my YouTube channel. It's had millions of views. It's called The Deep National Security State. And that they took the deep state out of that.
But Trump always showed.
I am not. By the way, just on the record, I'm completely nonpartisan because I have to brief, both.
Well, we make fun of both sides on our podcast too.
Oh yeah, well I do too. Yeah.
Come on, he's talking about spaceships.
I call it the buffoonery of Washington. It's comedy. It's a comedy, a tragicomedy.
Well, Dr. Greer, thank you for coming on. We really, really appreciate talking to you. So interesting.
Fascinating.
This has been a presentation of Odyssey. Superfly is executive produced by Dana Carvey and David Spade, Jenna Weiss-Berman of Odyssey, Heather Santoro, and Greg Holtzman.